Here, it's all right. And we'll go ahead and get started. Just to reintroduce ourselves a bit here, my name's Sean Vosser, and I work with Ty and his team to help them with different promotions. I work with them on copy, do a lot of the marketing side of things, and find awesome people like Sam to bring on to have awesome discussions. Now, you're going to see on the screen, you might actually see a URL. We'll talk about that quite a bit more in the workshop part of this. But tylopez.com/Sam Ovens, you're actually going to see and actually the link, guys, is tylopez.com/consulting. If we can change that. It may go to the same place, but there's actually going to be a workshop tomorrow where we're going to focus on the nitty-gritty of the consulting side of things. But today we're going to get to know Sam, his story, how he actually built up from scratch, really, a six-figure per month consulting agency. Now, the idea here isn't that we're going to go off and is it the same thing? That's fine. Leave it at that then. That's cool. All right, just making sure we got the right link on there. So we're going to get to know Sam, his story, how he got started from scratch, because it's a fascinating story. We've been talking about it for the last few days, and he actually has a program that a lot of his students have gone through, built some awesome agencies. So we'll talk about that, their stories. But let's talk a little bit about you, Sam. Sam Ovens, you're from New Zealand. How long have you been in the States? You've been out here?
7 months.
7 months now. Wow. I guess time flies. I remember what you were talking about. You were going to move to San Diego.
Yeah.
You were looking at places, and I was like, awesome. And then next time I talked to you, like, oh, no, I'm in New York. It's cool.
That was the toss-up between San Diego and New York.
Yeah, it's more like if you want to do business, you want to be on the top end of the business world, which Sam is. He's a consultant through and through, but he also is an investor and does a lot of cool things on that end as well. But it's where it all happens. You know, it's a big city. But what's cool, and we'll get into this a bit more with some of the stories of your students. You have students in the middle of nowhere compared to Manhattan, you know, out in the Midwest, things like that are crushing it with consulting. And that's what I find fascinating about this whole discussion of consulting from a subject matter is that it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter the foundation that you have from a skill set. You can actually build a business. The fastest. Would you say it's basically the fastest way to get into a business?
For sure. I mean, when you want to become an entrepreneur, I mean, you've got all of these different options, right? You can start like an e-commerce business and sell physical products. You can start a software company and develop a software product or an app or something like that. Or you can get into like a brick and mortar business, or you can get involved in these businesses which require a lot of staff. Mm-hmm. And, you know, many entrepreneurs, I think, you know, there's that number that like 99% of entrepreneurs fail or something. Yeah. Like, I think a lot of that is due to them just picking the wrong battles to begin with. I mean, if you don't have any money and you go into a business which is capital intensive, like software development, I mean, you're pretty much doomed from the beginning. And so in my first year when I got started in entrepreneurship, I tried to start a software company. And, you know, the developers' bills start piling up. And, you know, you can pay them for so long and then you can't pay them any longer. And so the first year I was in business, I started 3 different companies. All 3 of them failed. And really that was because I didn't have enough capital to get involved with that sort of business. And then that's how ultimately I moved to consulting, because with consulting you can get started right away with just your cell phone and your laptop, and you can start making money very quickly, and you don't need capital, you don't need staff or things like that. So I would say with confidence that if you're just getting started in business, consulting is absolutely the best place to start.
Yeah, and two, it's so funny because I have a similar background from trying a bunch of different types of businesses, and I eventually segued into more of an agency model consulting. And for me personally, it's kind of the same thing. Like I spent, instead of investing a bunch of money in developers, I invested years into trying to learn how to be a developer. Like I was like, I'll just build my own, you know, software. I'll build my own apps and all this stuff. And it sounds like a great idea at the beginning, but the truth is the one currency we all have is time. So it's either you can invest that time in trying to compete with this wide world of developers and build your own software, or you can take the risk and invest the money with a developer and build software. And like you said, you better make it or you're going to break it, kind of thing. But let's step back for a second, because you said some really interesting things about how important it is if you're just getting started. And really, I know there's a lot of people on the call, and maybe we'll do a little Q&A here, like or ask a question, have you guys interact with us here a bit. But it's also great for anybody who, maybe they have a day job, or they're like, maybe you're successful, you're doing really well in your own business, or you're working for somebody. A lot of your students I know are already doing fairly well on their day jobs, but they're just not happy with the level of control that they have with their time. Is that that's another area? And maybe in the chat, guys, if you're you can see the chat on tylopez.com. Put a 1 in there and press reply. Press a 1 if you'd consider yourself an entrepreneur and you're looking to start your own business. I know that's a big segment of the audience, and a lot of people, they don't know where to start, right? They don't know where to go. And that's really the goal of this workshop. I was going to say one big goal for you guys, one big benefit you're going to get out of it, is it'll give you a good idea of what someone said my purple jacket is terrible. I think it's a great jacket. Mean. Yeah, that's pretty mean. What about his jacket? Do you like his jacket? Do you like any jackets, or is it just jackets? All right, so put a 1 in there if you are an entrepreneur and looking to start your own business, because the goal of this workshop, if we can inspire anything, it's to look at becoming a consultant, right? So we'll take a look at that in a second. There's a little bit of a delay. But talk for a second for me, Sam, on that subject of like folks who maybe they have a day job and they're doing well, like 9 to 5 kind of thing. What has been your experience with your students? And we'll talk a bit about your story here too. Where have you seen the big benefits come to them from, maybe they're already working right now?
Yeah, well, the big discovery for me is that, and for a lot of my clients, is that when you have a 9 to 5 job, like you're providing value to that company, right? And you've picked up some skills. So you might be good at HR, you might be good at marketing, you might be good at sales, you might be good at IT, or any of these different things. And, inside a job, you might be earning like $50,000 per year, but providing that same service that you're providing to that company, you could go out and provide that to, 5 or 10 clients, and you could make, 5 times more doing that than what you could working for your company. And a lot of people are aware of that. So a lot of employees have a job and they know that if they went out on their own and did this, that they would make more, but they're too scared to, and they're too afraid to, because first of all, they don't know how they're going to price it. Right. They don't know how to structure the services, and they don't know how to craft the offer. Right. And they also they don't believe in their ability to actually get clients. Yeah. So, those are the things that are holding them back from that. I think everyone kind of knows that they've got like a consulting offer or something of value that they could provide to people. But the problem is always, how do I get started? How do I price it? How do I package it? And then how do I actually get clients? Right. So that's pretty much like a good overview of what we're going to cover today. I mean, what we can do is we can probably dive right into some of the content if you want. Yeah, let's map it out, because I know, the tough thing for people to visualize, I guess, is how they could possibly turn their skill into a business, right, and actually make it profitable. I think we can all see, like, hypothetically how to start our own business, but profitable is a whole other angle of it. So yeah, let's dive right in. Cool. I'll give you this. Well, I'll start off with a quick story about me and how I got started and why you should listen to me, because when I was at college, I took a class in entrepreneurship, and I was like excited about it. I was like, I'm going to learn how to become an entrepreneur, and I'm going to learn how to make money and do business. So I enrolled in this class in entrepreneurship, and the lecturer came in and stood up and started presenting the first class, and I had this thought running through my head all the time. I was like, why should I listen to him? How do I know that what this guy is talking about is for real? because when I did my research on him, he had never started a business of his own, and he was also he rode a bike to college to present, and he like packed his lunch in a plastic bag, and I pretty much worked out that he was probably, you know, broke too, or not broke, but definitely not well off. And so I found it really hard to listen to someone's advice on how to make money and how to start a business and how to be an entrepreneur when they hadn't done it themselves and they weren't well off. And so that always stuck with me, and that was one of the reasons why I left, you know, I dropped out of college, was because I really couldn't stand learning from a source who had no experience in doing it. And so for that reason, like, I just want to tell you my story so that you know that what I'm going to be talking about today in this presentation actually comes from experience and actually comes from, you know, applying these things in the real world and making money. So it's not some theory, and, you know, the things I'm going to be teaching you are the real deal. So my story basically began when I took the normal sort of path. I went to school, and then I went to college, and I always believed that, you know, if you got a corporate job and you worked in an office, that meant you'd made it. So I went to school, went to college, got my first internship at a company called Vodafone, which is a telecommunications company in New Zealand. And I started my job there, and things were going awesome, but in the second month, things just felt a bit dull. Like, I was like, this is what I've been working towards my whole life. And, you know, your teachers and your parents and your lecturers have always told you, like, you know, this is it. And so I was sitting in my cubicle at Vodafone, and I was like, surely this can't be it. Like, this is the next 30 years for me. Like, I was just a bit weirded out. And I think a lot of people get that feeling when they first get their corporate job. They're like, wow, it's not what I thought.
It's a big part of why prescription drugs are taking off, because it's very depressing. I was there too. I worked for Johnson & Johnson, one of my first jobs, in a gray, like literal gray cubicle, like the most stereotypical type. Like, it smelled like just pristine office. And I was so excited. Like you said, you thought it was like the big thing, and then you're like, holy crap, this is actually terrible.
Yeah. And I was looking at all the people around me, and some of them, well, a lot of them were smarter than me. They were harder working than me. They got into work at like 6 a.m. They worked till 8 p.m, and they wore the company like t-shirts, and they had the mugs, and they were on the sports teams, and they worked so hard, and they gave everything to the firm. And they'd been there for 30 years. And I looked at how far they had progressed through the firm and how much money they were making and how much they had traded for that. And I was like, that's not a fair trade. And that's definitely not worth it, and I'm not willing to do that. So that's when I really realized that, you know, the corporate life wasn't for me. And so I quit my job, and I dropped out of college, and I had to move back home with my parents into their garage because they'd downsized their home since I'd moved out. And I pretty much sold everything I had, which was not much stuff. And I had about 6,000 New Zealand dollars, which is about 4,000 US, after I sold everything. And I just told my parents and everyone, I'm going to start a business. And that's where I really started. In my first year, I started 3 different companies, and all of them failed. And I ran all the money I had out, and I got into debt. Like, I took credit cards and some loans and stuff to try and start these companies. And at the end of my first year, I was like living in the garage. I had, including student loan debt, I think I was 80 grand in the red. Yeah. And I had nothing going, and 3 failed companies to my name. And then one day, like, out of sheer desperation to just make something work, I was just like, I just need to make something work. I need to prove to myself and to like my family and to everyone else that this was the right decision to make. Yeah. And so that's when I really turned to consulting. And how it happened is, throughout my journey of all of these failures, I'd learned a little bit about what made a website good. And I was by no means an expert or a coder or anything. I didn't know how to code. But I knew what made a website good. Like, it should have a homepage like this and an about page and things like that. And I started looking at all of these companies' websites in New Zealand, like builders and window tinting companies and plumbers and stuff like this. Companies which were making decent money. And then I was like, well, wow, these companies are making money and these are good businesses, but their websites are bad, and I could help them.
Yeah.
And that was the first realization. I was like, whoa, what I have in my brain can actually help some people.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I wonder if they'd pay for it. And that was where it began. And so I just started calling these different companies. And I think it was the third company that I spoke to, a window tinting business. I said, hey, look, I was looking at your website and I think you're making some big mistakes and I can definitely help you with it. And the guy was like, well, yeah, you're so right. I've been meaning to update this website for years. And okay, well, look, you sound like you know what you're doing. Like, how much would you charge? And I was just like, whoa, like taken back. I was not expecting him to ask me how much.
Yeah.
And so I just came up with a random number. I was like, $1,000.
Right.
And the guy was like, okay, cool. Well, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I was like stuttering on the phone. I was like,
okay.
yeah, I didn't have a company or anything set up. So after the call, I was like scrambling around trying to register a business and get a bank account so I could send him an invoice. And so that he paid me that $1,000. I helped him out with his website, and we improved it, and he was happy with it.
So, something you touched on that I'm sure you'll get into more is like you were kind of at the bottom of your rung, right? You had to make a choice, and you went to the one thing that you knew as far as just like if you did it enough, if you called enough people, you'd at least get the conversation started. And that's where I think a lot of people are afraid is having this communication aspect, which just kind of a open loop here, guys. We'll get into a bit of that, like when you start talking to potential clients, how to have that conversation without freaking out, and
yeah,
because I know you personally, like you're not this spambastic kind of crazy guy who's talking to everybody excited, but it forced you kind of out of your comfort zone a little bit, right? And,
oh man, like, I remember when I used to make calls, I had to drink like 4 beers, like no joking at all. Like
nice.
It took me that.
You've done over like 1,500 client calls.
I've done over 1,500 consults with people. But when I first got started, I still am to this day, like pretty shy. Like it's hard for me to do things, and it was like. But I was by no means one of those dudes who just like loves calling strangers. Yeah. That was like the hardest thing in the world for me.
I have a hard enough time like calling my family, just like, hey, what am I going to talk about? But that's impressive because I think, that just start of like, okay, I know I can help this, like putting your ego away. You kind of almost desperate at this point, right? You had to separate yourself from that call, which is impressive. So how'd you separate yourself when you're talking, when you got to the part after the sale, like, am I good enough to actually help this company? How did you establish yourself as being able to help them? Yeah,
well, I mean, all I knew was that, like, I looked at their website and I knew that it was working as is. And I was like, well, if it's working and it's that bad, then it must work better if it's made better. And I was like, I just knew that it would be better. I didn't know like specifically. I didn't know, hey, if I help this guy, he's going to make this much more money or anything like that. I just knew I'd be able to add some value.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll just finish the story.
Sure.
And so that was my first client, and it was $1,000, and that was where everything really changed for me. I was like, whoa, I can actually make money with what I've got in my head.
Huh, okay.
The first time I ever had validation that some of the skills I had were worth any form of money.
Yeah.
And so my first client was $1,000, and then I sold a couple of those, and then I learned that I could probably charge $3,000. So I started charging 3, then 5, then 10. And then I started working with more clients. And in that first year, I made about $110,000. And so my first year in business, I was zero, like I was in the red, probably 70, 80 grand. Then in that first year consulting, I made 100. And then in the second, I did 500. In the third, 1.2. The fourth, 2.4. And now we're in the fifth right now. And it's probably going to be about 6.5.
Wow. That's pretty good exponential growth. And the nice thing about consulting, if you're not aware, it's like mostly profit, right? So it's using the value up here to increase what they're already doing, right? So you don't have to really invest a ton of money or capital into anything physical really at that point. It can be digital marketing, things like that. But would you like that's one of the other big benefits of this, right? It's like it's your overhead's so low, and you have very little to invest from even a monetary I don't know the right word for that, financially, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, like our business is doing probably $350,000, $400,000 a month, and it's me and then one assistant, and I work from home in my apartment in New York, and our total, like our overhead's hardly anything.
Yeah.
So our profit margins are around 80%.
Wow.
They could be tighter than that, but I still have fun and things like that, and so 80% profit margins are pretty much unheard of anywhere. I mean, if you were to start a Subway franchise, you would be, you'd
instantly $400,000 in debt just for the franchise.
But this is the thing. Like, this is this opportunity which we have right now. It's like in the past, if you wanted to start a business, you would lease a building. You'd sign up for like 4 years. You'd fit it out. You'd put a kitchen in there. Like, you'd buy a Subway franchise license. You'd hire like 10 staff. Yeah. You'd buy all of these ingredients. You'd start marketing. Before you open your doors, you're probably $500,000 in the red.
Right.
And then when you do open those doors, the customers start trickling in slowly. And for every sandwich you sell, you're only keeping 10%. So if you sell something for $10, you keep like one.
To sell a million subs before you're seeing your first.
But that's a big eye opener. Wow. And I wish that when I started in business, I paid more attention to profit margins, because the first few businesses I started, one was an office lunch delivery one, one was a software company, and the other one was a website. I didn't learn that in those industries, the profit margins are small.
Yeah, and even with software, that's a very elusive one, because we might think like, oh, it's all digital, like there's no real hard cost. But when you factor in developers, and the one that people don't factor, and this is the biggest one, is the marketing cost. Because if you're selling, a $10 to $100 per month software, you have what's called a cost per acquisition. It's not like you can call and say, hey, you should use this software, it's $29. That's not scalable. You have to pay for advertising, you have to pay people to do SEO, you have to pay for all of that, and that's quite a big expense. And your expense to get that $1,000 sale was 3 phone calls, which are free now, right? So that's a killer thing. So, and then you were telling me last night that window tinting company, they went off and the way you reckoned it, they opened up 3 more stores after that, right? So you helped them at that pivotal moment. You had 1 store, you went to 3. You're telling me an awesome takeaway that basically it showed you that it might have been worth more than $1,000.
I should have charged more,
right?
yeah. Well, the guy went out, like, I helped. I really over delivered, and everyone should do that with your first client. Like, because when you first charge someone money, there's this element of guilt, right? You feel like someone's going to come and arrest you. You almost feel like you're going to get arrested because someone paid you $1,000. You're like, oh my god. But because you're all inside your own head, and so I worked so hard on that company, and I did things I didn't even need to do. Yeah. Like, helped him with his social media, I helped him rewrite his ads, I helped him do a whole bunch of stuff, and I really over-delivered on it. And what I did is I enabled him to stand pretty much at the front of all the window tinting businesses in New Zealand, and that's what enabled him to grow so quickly. Wow. And yeah, I mean, within the first year, he opened up 2 more. I don't know if he franchised them. No, they weren't franchises. 2 more locations.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that realization of, okay, maybe this is worth more than $1,000. I mean, how do you factor that in? Because I know to get to that, 6-figure per month, which, that's a great number to shoot for, but it's one of those that will probably take a few years to build up the reputation, all that. What are some of those factors in the pricing? Because looking at the big picture for anybody who's looking to get into consulting, and I think we'll better define what exactly consulting is here in a second, but the financial side, how do you factor that? Because it seems such a wide range. Like, what do you look for even now in consulting, especially when you're looking at companies? What are the, maybe what's the formula for this pricing that you're doing? Sure.
I'm just thinking how we should dive into this content and do this. I think in order to have a successful consulting business, you pretty much need I always say you need 3 things. And I'll draw these up now.
Cool.
And pricing is so important. I just want to cover niche and offer first.
Okay, great.
So in order to start a very profitable consulting business, you need these 3 things. Can you see this as I'm...
Yep.
Cool. So the first one is a niche and offer. The second one is a way to generate appointments. And then the third is way to convert appointments to clients. So I'll just do, and I'll explain these in a second. So in order to start a successful consulting business, I mean, in the world we're in today, like, you're bombarded with so many different messages. Like, you need to have a blog, you need to write a book, you need to be on Facebook Live, Periscope, you need to have a Twitter account, and you need to be doing all of these different things, right? Like going to networking events. And that was the advice that I was believing too. Right. And so when I first started consulting, I burnt myself out trying to do all of these different things.
You were on every platform then, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it was a full-time job.
Right.
And so, I was keeping up a social media appearance and doing all of these different things, but the money wasn't coming in. And that's when I really realized that there's only 3 things that are really important. And when you just focus on these 3 things, you can pretty much forget about everything else.
Gotcha.
And so I haven't really done anything else other than these 3 things for the past few years. And that's just relentless focus on these 3 things is what's really been, it's what's really made me get such awesome results. So the first one is that you need a niche and an offer. And this is because most consultants are generalists, and in business, being a generalist is like the worst thing that you can possibly be. Yeah. And the best way I can describe it is with an example from the medical profession. So in the medical profession, you've got like a general practitioner, and a general practitioner works usually in a very small office. Yeah. They have to see a patient pretty much every 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah. They have to work long hours, and they're not. It's a volume business, and they don't get paid very much. Their working environment isn't the coolest. Yeah. And they also don't get a whole bunch of respect in the medical industry. And so it's because they're a generalist. Like, a general practitioner is a generalist. Yeah. But then on the other hand, you've got the brain surgeon. And the brain surgeon works from an awesome location. Typically they've got a very fancy practice, and then they don't have to see so many patients. Right. Generally they're only doing 1 or 2 surgeries a week. Yeah. And they get a whole bunch of respect. Yeah. Usually they're featured on the news, and it's like, look at this brain surgeon, look at these miracles that they've been doing and things like that. And they get paid on average 20 to 100 times more than a general practitioner.
Wow. Yeah.
So
it's like a construction worker versus an architect. Like, it's big difference.
The difference between a generalist and a specialist is just huge. And it's not just the money, it's the lifestyle with it, the respect, and everything. Gotcha. And this is true everywhere in business. Like, the generalist always gets treated like dirt, and the specialist always gets paid more, has more fun, and gets more respect. Yeah. And so this is true and universal throughout everything in business, but it's very, very important in the field of consulting. And I've met so many consultants, and I ask them, hey, what do you do? And they're like, I'm a consultant. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you do? And they're like, well, I'm a business consultant. I consult businesses. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you do? And they're like, well, I help businesses grow, and, I help them with these different things. And I'm like,
what do you do?
Yeah, and that's the first telltale sign of a generalist. Yeah. And if that is you, or if you start your consulting business and that's your response, then you're not really a consultant. You're certainly not an expert. And all you really are is a glorified human body for hire.
Right.
You're essentially...
You created your own job at that point.
You're a human shell for hire at a rate.
Yeah.
you're pretty much, just going to someone, seeing what they want, and then saying, I can do that.
Yeah.
That's most consultants.
Sure.
I would say that's 99% of consultants out there.
Yeah.
And you can't compete if you're a generalist. Like, if you're a generalist and you pitch someone, then they're going to price shop you, they're going to compare you to all these other consultants, and these are everywhere. I mean, in the online marketing world, you see, this cracks me up, and you'll see these everywhere.
List their services, right?
Yeah, they do everything from a business card, they do posters, they do print jobs, they
social media,
they wrap
web page.
cars,
Yeah.
like they'll wrap your car, they'll do sign writing, and then they just tack on all of this other stuff, like SEO, AdWords, Facebook. Like, man, they're just doing everything.
More is not better in this case then.
It's just like, another, like we've got one example is the general practitioner and the plastic surgeon. Another one is that, the cheap Chinese restaurant, which has have you seen their menus sometimes? They're this thick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're Korean food, Japanese food, Chinese food,
They try and offer everything.
Yeah.
And then you've got the shop around the corner that just does one thing well.
Yeah.
And the line's out the door.
Right.
And this is true everywhere.
Yeah.
This is a huge lesson.
And it's more rare, right? So it's like the scarcity aspects there. It's harder to find.
People want to work with someone who has focus.
Yeah.
So, like, I wouldn't be very credible standing up here talking about consulting if I was also doing 10 other things.
Yeah.
So the reason why I've gotten so good at this is because this is all I do.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning, think about consulting all the way to when I go to bed, and I've studied this, read every book about it, and
you probably dream about it too. That's the creepy
probably.
part. Probably. Yeah.
And so, that's what people want. They want someone like that.
Right.
It's like, imagine
100%.
Imagine if LeBron James was doing the Tour de France and playing water polo, and golf.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be as good as basketball.
Right.
And so this is the huge first thing you need. So you need a niche and you need an offer. So a way to become a specialist in consulting is to pick a niche. And a niche is like an industry or something specific like that. And I'm going to show you exactly how to pick your niche. The second thing you need is an offer. And an offer is what you're going to be selling to people. So how do you take your knowledge and your expertise and the things that you know, how do you take that and then actually turn it into an offer and price it and position it and sell it to people?
Yeah.
So this is the big number one, which we'll cover in a second. The second one you need is a way to generate appointments. So once you've got a niche and you've got an offer, in consulting, you need to generate an appointment, somewhere where you're going to talk to someone or meet them in person. I prefer to do phone, which means that for everyone watching, if you're like, well, I only live in a small town, how am I, I don't know if there's going to be enough potential clients here. The awesome thing is that you can do them over the phone or Skype, so you can really serve the world. You don't need to worry just about your specific town. But you need a way to generate appointments. And most consultants don't know how to generate appointments. And they use what I call like hope marketing.
Yeah.
And hope marketing is when you pretty much go into your office and you just get down on your knees and you just say a prayer. You're like, please, will someone call me today?
Yeah.
And this is how most people operate their businesses. And it's really quite scary. Like, if you operate your business with hope marketing, then you've probably got 6 months. And that's being generous.
And you'll be in debt after
You're going to be wiped out. Absolutely wiped out.
Yeah.
And if you're running your business like that currently, it's totally irresponsible and you need to fix it. And so in this live call today, I'm going to show you a proven way to generate appointments.
Nice.
So the exact method which I'm using right now, which all of my clients are using, where we can generate as many appointments as we want on a predictable basis every
Would
day.
you say that if you get this right, I know a lot of people, like you end up being able to filter through pretty heavily, like only take the calls you want. That's another big benefit of getting this right, is because you can work with the best. You don't have to sell to everyone. I know I've had clients that I wish I wouldn't have taken, but I had to at the time, right? And that's another big benefit here, and maybe one that it's a good problem to have is being able to turn away leads that you maybe shouldn't have worked with.
Yeah, you want to be spoiled for choice, otherwise you're going to be pulled in directions you don't want to go. And that's a big mistake people make. So that's number 2. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you how to do all of these things in this training. And then number 3 is a proven way to convert appointments into clients.
Yeah.
So again, most consultants, even if they do have a niche and an offer and they do have a way to generate appointments, which by the way, no one has, then they're
1% have this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe.
even less almost. And people don't have a proven way to convert that appointment into a sale. So a lot of people show up to an appointment or a phone call and they wing it. Every single time it's a bespoke conversation. They're like, oh, tell me what you do, and they try something different every time. There's no proven process which they go through. And when you operate your business that way, there's just no predictability. Yeah. And there's no uniform way to conduct a consultation. And this is a critical mistake everyone makes. And it means that you've got no predictability in your business. And at this moment, I've done about 1,700 of these calls.
Wow.
And I've recorded all of them. And I've got them transcribed, and I've studied them, and I've looked at what sentence made that one work, or what sentence did I say in that one that blew it. And I've really studied these things and put quite a disturbing amount of time into this.
I was going to say that sounds pretty madman-like. I like it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's what you got to do.
There's more than 18,000 hours that I've put into consulting.
Would you say this is an area that, like, if someone would have handed you like here's how you skip these mistakes, like that would have been a useful guide, right? Like, instead of putting 18,000 hours worth of transcriptions together, that would have been nice to have, huh?
Yeah. And so in this program, in this training, I'm also going to show you what that proven process is.
Nice.
So I've developed a methodology for conducting these calls, as well as a script, like a proven script, which I can use. And when I use that script, I know with total predictability how many people will turn into clients. Wow. So I know if I talk to 10 people, 3 will buy.
Yeah.
And when you have that predictability, and when you have that, like, what's a good word for it?
Consistency, really.
Yeah, and just confidence. You know that, all right, if I want to make this much money per month, then I need to generate 10 appointments and 3 will become clients. Yeah. Your business is all of a sudden easy. You're like, okay, I wake up in the morning, I need to generate 10 appointments, talk to them, I'll get 3. Yeah. So that's when you start to have fun in business. Right. When you've got things you can control. Right. But most consultants have no control over anything. And so these are the only 3 things you need to make 6 figures per year, and they're also the only 3 things you need to make 7 figures per year. Yeah. And so I tried all of those different things and burnt myself out, got into debt, and it didn't really work. Yeah. Then I just got relentless and focused on these 3, and now my business this year is going to do about $6.5 million.
Wow. And that's, again, I've talked to plenty of people in e-commerce and different businesses, and they may have a revenue $10 million, but their overhead puts it at about a 90% profit or 10% profit margin. So their take home for every million is $100,000. This is flipping that equation quite a bit. Now, the nice thing when you work with those higher profit margins, if you need to hire people, if you need to, you have the ability to actually scale your business a bit differently. And you said something interesting on this part 3, closing the deal. When you say you close 3 out of 10, what's fascinating, because I run an agency and I generally only sell 1 client a month kind of thing. Like I have a little bit different approach where I just focus on specific clients, but what's nice is you're working with the best of the best because you're so niched that you can charge really high-end pricing. And the call itself, too, is also a matter of, like, filtering through. Should it, 7 out of 10, it's mainly because you chose not to close them. They weren't qualified, right? So that's another cool thing I think that, like, I've learned from you studying some of the ways that you do this is a bad client is something worth turning down. So that close rate of 30% is mainly because those other 7 weren't qualified. They would take too much of your time, or they weren't ready, right?
Well, how the numbers work is you really, out of 10 people, 5 aren't a good fit.
Yeah.
So 5 people, you're not even making an offer to them.
Yeah.
So you're only making an offer to 5, and 3 out of 5 buy. Right. So your conversion rate is really like 75%.
Yeah. But you got to filter through a bit.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
people might be listening and thinking 3 out of 10, oh my God, well, it's because we spoke to 10, 5, we didn't even make an offer to them. We're like, hey, look, I don't really think I can help.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you really want to have the ability to turn people away when they're not a good fit. Yeah. Because in business, you start out, a lot of the time, you start out with like a focal point like this, and you're providing the service where you're really good at and where you're comfortable at, and you're doing what you want to do. But then when you don't have the luxury of choosing from a whole bunch of different people, someone says, well, can you do this for me? And it's out here.
Like, maybe.
And when you're tight on cash, you're like, I'll pretty much transform myself to anything.
Yeah.
All right. And so you get pulled out here. And then once you've gone this far, you're like, well, I may as well go out here. And before you know it, you pretty much got yourself a job at doing something that you don't even like doing.
That's where I ended up early in my, because I'm a consultant, but it took me, I literally bounced, I would have given it, you should have came out about 4 years earlier than you did. It would have helped me a lot. Because I did this same thing. So I started in web design, and then eventually I started going into video, and then I went over here to email marketing. Then so I got a lot of the skills, and then eventually I would say, well, I can do it all. But a client could only pay me, say, $5,000, but I'd be doing all of it. And at that point, you're bleeding yourself dry because you can't do these parts anymore. You can't sell anymore. So if you're very specific about what you're doing, you're able to do it effectively, quickly, and you're not stressing yourself with all these different elements, right? So the niche part, I think, is like all these are super important. This is one of the toughest, finding that niche, I would imagine, especially if you're just getting started. But it's so important, and that offer is so important. And it's the most powerful thing that took me years. And I'll tell you, the opportunity cost is in the millions for me from time wasted not focusing on those things.
Oh, yeah. It's the big mistake everyone makes, even big companies. They lose focus and they lose sight of what their core competence is. Yeah. And you've really got to watch out for it. So let's do number one right now. Let's show, for everyone on this live call, why you need a niche and why you need an office. So let's do it.
Let's do that. And while he's pulling that up, just letting you know, if you're just jumping on, we're joined here with Sam Ovens. He's a high-level consultant and actually trains consulting as well. He's been doing this for years now, and he actually personally runs a 6-figure per month consulting agency. Was the last count was about 356 per month. You were saying 356,000, and the beauty of it is that you can start with really no experience. It's just the experience you have. You can refine it. But right now we're talking about the first critical step, which is that selecting that niche. Now you are holding a workshop tomorrow that is. If you're just jumping in a little late, if you're coming in and you're really interested in the subject, you can actually, and we'll write this at the top here real quick. I'll write it up, but it's tylopez.com /consulting, and it's a workshop that Sam's been holding for us for a while now, and he's actually had a few students come in through this program. And this is a free workshop, by the way. There's no cost to attend this. And what's been very powerful, he's covering a lot of similar content, but he goes way more in depth on this. So if this is resonating with you, if you're feeling like, wow, this sounds pretty cool, like I'm seeing where the niche is coming in the offer, it's something that you'd like to learn more about, highly recommend checking out tylopez.com /consulting. You'll see a sign-up sheet where you can select a time tomorrow on there to join Sam, where he'll be teaching this more in depth. But now let's jump back in. I feel like that's we did the radio thing where they have to bring everybody back in that comes in later, right? Now Sam's going to be breaking down the power and how to select a niche. And there we go. And I'll hand that off to you. I'm going to let you run with that. I'm going to grab my Red Bull, and then I'm going to jump back in. So this is yours, baby. Let's do it.
Well, yeah, like Sean said, what we're doing now on this live call is it's a lot more relaxed, and we're talking through why, like, how powerful it can be to have a consulting offer and to be a consultant. But if you want to check out like a very specific training, like a free live training, tylopez.com /consulting. I spent 36 hours preparing that presentation. So like, if you want to see my absolute best stuff, And if you want to get like just the best stuff I can possibly share with you in consulting, then you definitely want to go and register for that training right now, because it's only going to be up for a limited time, and then we're going to take it offline. And it really is the best free training that I've ever put out, because I put so much work into it. But now let's talk about, picking your niche. You know why it's important, and you know you need one. You know you don't want to be that generalist or that general practitioner in the medical profession. You want to be the specialist. You want to be like the brain surgeon. So let's talk about how to pick it. So in order to pick your niche, I've developed this framework, and it's really allows you to see what you're good at and see where you can add value. And it looks like this. So it's 3 rings, and the first one here is your skills. So what I want you to do is, make a list of all of the skills that you have. Like, you can just list 10 things. Take an audit of yourself and think, throughout my journey in life so far, throughout my career or throughout what I've done, like, what skills do I have? Take an audit and just list 5 or 10 things. The second one is the industries that you know. So an industry is something like plumbing or aviation, or it could be like trade, it could be building, it could be accounting, it could be law. An industry is something like that, and you want to now think, what industries do I know, or what industries am I passionate about, or what industries am I interested in, or throughout my journey in life so far, what industries do I have some sort of understanding about. So what I want you to do right now is just make a list, 5 or 10 industries that you know. And then that's the first one, that's the second, and now the third one is the marketplace's needs and desires. And this is the most important one. So now look at the industries that you've listed here. It might be plumbing, it might be electricians or whatever. Now, what you want to do is think about and do some research into what problems for example's sake, we'll use plumbing. So you'll think, well, what problems do plumbing businesses face on a day-to-day basis? What makes plumbers wake up in the middle of the night sweating? Like, what are they worried about? Like, what problems do they face? You really want to understand these things. And now you want to kind of do some research and list, what are some of the fears and desires and aspirations that these industries have. And once you've done that, you've listed your skills, you've listed your industries that you know, and you've listed the needs and desires of those industries, the perfect overlap of these 3 things in the middle here is where you are going to pick your niche. And the reason why we do this is because that's where the perfect overlap of your skills and your understanding of industries and their problems all comes together. And this is where you are most potent, and this is where you are most powerful. So what I want you to do is complete that exercise right now. And sometimes it can take a little bit of time. So you might just want to write this down, and then you might want to do it later tonight or something like that. I don't expect you to be able to find your perfect niche in just the 4 or 5 minutes that I've been talking about this here. So that's exactly how you pick your niche. And the next one, so to give you guys some examples always help, I find. So your skills, you might have listed things like, well, I understand social media, I understand websites, and you might list some industries, like I understand plumbing industry, your dad might be a plumber or something like that. And then the needs and desires, you might talk to a couple of plumbers, find out what they want, and they might say, oh, we need to find more business. Like, the Yellow Pages, we used to put an ad in the Yellow Pages, and people just called us and hired us. But now things aren't the same anymore. Like, we put money into Yellow Pages and the phone doesn't ring anymore. This is happening all over the world, and it freaks all of these businesses out. It's a huge opportunity in the marketplace right now. You've got all of these baby boomers and all of these businesses who were really spoiled by having the ability to just put some money onto a Yellow Pages ad. That ad would run for like 2 years and the phone would just ring, and that was marketing. That was marketing for like the past, I don't know how many years. But things have changed now, and the Yellow Pages no longer works. So, if you're talking to plumbers, you'll find out these sorts of things. So that is some examples. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is how to craft your perfect message and describe what you do as a consultant, which is critically important because, like I said, I've talked to many consultants. I used to go to like conventions and places where other consultants were, and it depressed me. It was like I just had to stop going to them because I saw the problem in the marketplace of consultants. Like they were all generalists and they were all burnt out, and they were pretty much they were willing to do anything for some money. Like just what I was saying before, like you ask them, what do you consult on? And they're like, well, I'm a business consultant. I help businesses. And, they're generalists, they're not specialists. So once you've found your niche, you need to have a way to, have a crystal clear message and describe what you do. And I've got a formula for doing that as well. And it looks like this. So it looks like this. I help blank to blank by blank. So this is the formula, and these are the variables which you put into this formula to get your perfect definition of what you do. So I help niche to get result by skill that you have. So I help niche to get result by skill that you have. Now on this previous thing here, we came up with these, right? We had your skills, we've got the industries that you know, and then we've got the needs and desires. So once you've completed that exercise, you can plug in this formula. So you might say, I help plumbers to get more customers by Facebook marketing. So if your skills was, I understand Facebook, and I like the plumbing industry, and the problem that they have is they need more customers, right? Well, how awesome is it to have when you go and ask most consultants what they do, they just stutter and they give you the weirdest answer you've ever heard. That's when you're a generalist. If you had an answer like this, you were at the top 0.01% of the consulting industry. If you can say, I help plumbers to get more clients with Facebook marketing, boom, you're a specialist. And that's when you can define what you do so clear like that and really pinpoint what you do like that, this is when you really start to leap ahead in the consulting industry. And this is when you really start, to pick up clients and start making a lot of money. So this is so powerful. So why this is powerful is I just want you all to imagine this scenario here. So let's say that you help plumbers get more clients through Facebook marketing. Let's say that's your thing. Let's say you pitch a plumber. Or let's say you pitch a plumber, and then let's say that a generalist digital agency went and pitched them too. They're like, look, we can help you get more business too. Well, how is the generalist agency going to compete with you when you're the specialist? If a plumber has the choice to work with someone who just does work for everyone or someone who is an expert at just helping plumbers, they're always going to choose the specialist. It's like you wouldn't get a general practitioner to perform brain surgery on you. There's no way that you would do that. If you had a problem and you needed brain surgery, you'd want to go to the specialist. There's no way in hell that you'd work with a generalist. And this is how it works in business too, and that's why it's so important to have this plugged in. And when you can say this, everything changes for you, and your marketing becomes more powerful and potent, and your ability to get more clients and charge higher prices. You get all the good stuff when you are able to do this. So I want you to write down this formula right now and really think on it and really think about what you can do. You might, I'll give you some more examples. You could say, I help women over 40 to lose weight through yoga or Pilates or something like that. That might be, if you understand women over 40 and their problem is to they want to lose some weight, and the skill that you have is yoga or personal training or something. It doesn't need to be limited to just the internet or normal businesses or money. I mean, I've got tons of clients in all sorts of different niches, doing all sorts of different things, and they can still use all of these methods which I've been showing you here. So I've got people who are life coaches. I've got people who even do stuff in different religions. I've got a guy in Vegas who is one of the best people at training people how to play craps. So he's an expert at how to play it. He's played it for like 30 years, and he has people fly into Vegas and pay him 10 grand a day, and he teaches them how to play craps like at the highest level. And he can still use this sentence and everything. Like, this isn't just restricted to business. This can go everywhere. I've also got clients who are fashion consultants. I've got people who are speech consultants for CEOs. So CEOs who come into power and they have to do all of this public speaking, but they're introverted and they have to learn how to do that. I mean, there is an endless list of different things which you can become a consultant on. So that is why this is so important. Now, like Sean said before, this live training which we're doing right now, it's just kind of, we're just kind of scratching the surface of some of the stuff which we can teach you about consulting. And Ty and I are holding a training where I show you in depth how to start a consulting business from scratch. So if you've been watching this training so far and you've been thinking, this guy kind of knows what he's talking about, and I want more of this stuff. And if you think this is good, I can tell you that the stuff in this training, which Ty and I are holding, is at least 10 times better than this. So if you've been enjoying this, you definitely want to go and register for that training right now.
Yeah, I'll jump in for just a second on that. We just set off the fire alarms. That's what we've done. I'm just kidding. It's like
what's that
terrifies
URL again?
Sam. tylopez.com/consulting. See if you can fit it in there. And what's interesting, we've been holding this workshop on and off for a bit now, and we've had a few people who've done some really cool things based on the program that you talk a bit more in that training. But let's talk for just a second, because I know there's after the offer, and we want to talk a little bit more about the actual closing of the deal as a consultant. But I've seen a few good questions come through. I want to make sure we cover. One of them is about, like, what if I don't have like a specific, like, specialized, I'm not a brain surgeon, right? Which I know you have a really cool way to deal with that. Before we jump into that one, another big question that comes to mind is like, yeah, you're doing this, you've been doing it for years, you're really great at this, Sam, and I can tell you know what you're doing. Do I have to spend all this time studying this thing and like becoming a consulting expert, like how to be a consultant, right? The beautiful thing is that it's really those 3 steps. If you can learn those 3 steps, you can do it. What would you say to people who, maybe they're hesitant that they can actually do it? And share that story. You tell me that the gal who she started your program and like she took a day off work, right? Like, share that with us, because it's interesting. Sam, just by the way, he has over 100 plus students who have done 6 figures in consulting sales, and he has 9 total 7-figure earners, consultants, and that number just keeps growing every single day. So share with us a couple of those stories, and specifically that one, because I thought it was so cool. Like, this gal, she seemed like she was frazzled to death about it, but she did what you said, right? She did those 3 steps.
Yeah.
Share that story with us, because that was really
cool.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's taken me a long well, it's still not that long. I mean, I've been in business for 5 years, and if most people were at 6 million a year in 5 years, I mean, they'd be stoked.
It takes 10 years to get a doctorate, so you got 5 more years before you can get your doctorate. In this,
it's taken me that long because I had to go out there without a map.
Yeah.
Like, I literally went, like, my first thing I searched was, like, how to consult or, like, how to start a business. And I was in a garage in New Zealand. Like, my mum's a special needs teacher and my dad's a builder. So we had no network. I didn't know any business people. Yeah. And we had no like money or anything. I mean, we were like poor family. Wow. And from, in a suburb in New Zealand, I mean, you can't get any less of a head start.
You think you're remote in the United States. Imagine being remote in New Zealand.
There's no such thing as remote in the US, man.
No, it's true. And you're 600 miles from the next biggest country which is Australia, which is still 20 million or so people, where California has 30 million. So it's like you were as remote as it gets. So that's a cool thing to keep in mind, guys. It doesn't matter. Location isn't as important as people think anymore. And because of that cell phone and because of that computer, you can really accomplish this thing. So you were out in the middle of nowhere. You built this up.
But I didn't have any map to follow.
Yeah.
Like, I went into the woods
you made your own map.
alone and kind of figured out like which turns lead nowhere and which places go different places. And I mean, it was very wasteful. Yeah. And the reason why I started helping other people start consulting businesses is I just wish that I had this information back then. Right. If I had this information back then, I would be at this level in like 2 years instead of 5.
Right.
And I wish someone was able to give me this sort of stuff back then. It would have saved me so much time, so much money. Yeah. And so that's really the core reason why I created this training and why I'm holding this workshop, which is on this URL up here. And now, since I show people exactly what to do, they avoid the wrong turns. And, I always say the time to have the map is before you enter the woods. Right? I went in without the map and it was hell.
Well, in the compass, if you're going with that analogy, and I love this analogy of like, if you have a map, you know what path to go on. The compass, though, is really the drive and desire, right? So you know the difference in your students, the ones who make it and break it. I mean, it's not easy, right? You have to follow the map. And that's where that if we're going with the analogy, the compass is that desire. For you were in a state of really desperation, but it changed from then. And I can tell in your story, it went from desperation to, wow, like I don't have to answer, like I don't have to go in at 9, get a report from somebody, and then have to sit at my desk for 12 hours, because that's what you're doing at Vodafone, basically, right? What was the next step in the compass aspect, the motivation part for you? Because I know a lot of people, the fear of it all kind of holds them back. Once you get the map, how do you keep on the path?
It's a good question. And like, people say it's hard to be successful, right? Like, I've worked hard and my students work hard too. And people say it's hard to be successful, but I think it's much harder to be unsuccessful. I mean, to honestly, like to worry about bills, to like look at how much food costs at restaurants and like sweat about it, and to commute every day, and and
well, we were talking about going out of the parking garage today. It was $15 for an hour to park, and we're like 5 years ago that would have been like, oh crap, that's a tenth of my bank account, right?
Yeah.
And that is a real legitimate fear for a lot of 90% of America, like most of the world faces that issue, right? So judging from where you came from the motivation standpoint, that it's harder to be unsuccessful than successful. Like, what would your advice to anybody who's like right there at that breaking point of like, I got the drive, I got the energy, I don't want to, fight the losing battles anymore. Like, how do you tell them that this map that you've figured out is the way to go? Because there are a million different maps, right? There's a lot of different treasure maps, I guess is the way to put it. What separates yours or the way that you've done it? And I this is a leading question, because I look at what your students have done, and that's why we brought you on, because it was like, holy crap, this isn't just the talk, this is the walk too, right?
Well, I know for a fact, because I've bought every training, read every book in this industry.
Yeah.
That my stuff has now only just become like the best there is in this industry, hands down. And it's also like no one else in this industry has had a track record of success that quickly. Like no one's gone to 6.5 million inside of really only 5 years.
Yeah.
And also,
this is old school. This is old school in the sense that consulting's been around for 100 years, whatever. There's people who make it and break it lucky, right? We hear about them. And maybe luck isn't the right word, but there is a very much a right place, right time situation, like a software that takes off or gets bought and sold by Google and they make $100 million. It's exponentially more difficult to manufacture that. There really isn't a map
There is no manufacturing that.
Yeah,
no one,
exactly.
like Mark Zuckerberg can't come out and say, I've got the map to creating Facebook.
Yes, right.
You know,
there's no way, right?
That's a high risk, high reward game. And I constantly battle, do I want to do a startup in Silicon Valley and raise the money? Do I want to do that? And really, like, at the end of the day, I just want something which I have certainty in.
Yeah.
Like
consistency. Yeah.
Well, I know that if you took everything off me right now, just absolutely everything, stripped to $0 and had no network, no nothing, I could build this thing back in 6 months.
Wow. And that's saying a lot, because I think there is that aspect of for the general, because here's the interesting statistic. Every month in the United States, 500,000, 500,000 new businesses are started. 80% of those fail in the first 5 years, and then 80% of the rest that remain fail in the next 5 years after that. So that's show that there is no, a lot of times there is no consistency. And then also it's another thing to say, there's a big market of small businesses to sell these services to, right? That's the big key here is your lead list grows by 500,000 every month that you potentially could reach out to. Every new business needs help with something, right?
Yeah. Well, to make money with consulting, you won't, like, I teach all of my clients that you want to have a service that's no cheaper than $2,000 per month on a recurring basis.
Right.
And I show every single one of my students how to do that.
Yeah.
And when you charge $2,000 a month, over a year, that's 24,000.
Yes.
You need just over 4, but let's call it 4. You need 4 clients to make $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
4.
Wow. And you just take care of those 4.
Do you think if you had like a proven way to get clients, you could get 4 in a year?
Yeah. If you're tenacious enough, you can get 4 in a week. I mean, that's
why. I mean, with this training, like on this free training that Ty and I are putting together, tylopez.com/consulting. Since 2013, when I actually started helping other consultants. So basically what happened is I started my consulting business, grew it right up, and this, it caught a few people's attention, and I did some interviews and things like that. And people started reaching out to me, and they were like, can you show me how to start one of these businesses? Like, I want to know how to do one. And I was like, nah, you won't be able to do it, man. You always think that you're special and that no one else will get it, right? That's just always what we think. So I kept putting people off, but then this one guy, his name was Stanley, and he just kept hounding me. He was like, I want to learn, and then he offered to pay me. Yeah. And I was like, fine, all right. And so we jumped on Skype, and I started teaching him how to do it. And in my head, I was like, there's no way this guy's going to make it work. Yeah. Like I thought it was, no one else could do it. But then within the first month of working with me, Stanley landed a $10,000 a month client. Wow. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, this thing can be taught to people. Yeah. And so that's when it all began, and that was in 2013. Wow. And since 2013... Oh, jeez.
Oh, we were close. It's one of those numbers. There we go.
Since 2013, there's been 9 millionaires, and I share these actual people's stories with you on the training. Like, this is just a number right here, but I share their names and specific stories on the training. This is all real stuff. And there's over 100, I think it's about 130, but I'm just going to say over, because I want to make sure that these are understated, if anything. So over 100 people have got to 6 figures, which is more than 100 grand a year, and more than 80 people have quit their jobs. So, like you said, what makes this map so good? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
people getting to the finish line, right?
when you want to follow someone's advice, and this is probably like one of the biggest takeaways from this training today. When you want to follow someone's advice, you want to follow someone who is precisely where you want to be.
Yes.
So find out where you want to go, and make sure that person isn't just saying that they're there, but they're actually there. And you need to know that for a fact, because there's a lot of people that say they're somewhere and they're not.
I know a lot of broke millionaires. It's true.
Yep.
Yeah, and
most of the gurus, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we won't throw ourselves into a hole. Yeah.
But most people, they aren't really where they are at, and so this really was a driving thing. Like, I was listening to this guy. It all started back in college when he was teaching entrepreneurship, and I was like, but he's not an entrepreneur. What the hell? It's like, you probably wouldn't want to be taught how to lose weight from a fat person. I mean, it's just right. Like,
you want to learn it from me.
It's all obvious.
Yeah.
Like, it's all. Well, you wouldn't want to learn how to fly a plane from someone who had crashed one 3 times.
Right.
Like, just basic things in real life, but we don't seem to understand that in business.
Yeah.
So if you never ever take business advice from a broke person.
Yeah.
Ever. It's bad news. Like,
and that's what's funny. And a lot of people, like, we've all read the self-help books, the Tony Robbins, whatever. The funny thing, and they all kind of stress this, is like certain people in your life are going to drain you, and most of the time it's because they're afraid of certain things, whatever it is. But like, find people who are doing, like you said, what you want to do. And this is how I got started, right? I started following people who were living the lifestyle that I wanted. And I literally was just like, I'm getting whatever they're doing, I'm going to learn how to do it, right? And it was a bumpy road. I did a lot of the pinball machine stuff too. But that's fascinating. I mean, you look at these folks' results, and of course we have to say, and it's very true, like, there's a lot of tenacity that goes in here. The map is only as good as the person holding it, right?
So I use the treadmill analogy, right? Like, let's say you're overweight and you go out and you buy a treadmill and you put it inside your house. That doesn't mean that you're going to lose weight. Yeah. And if you want to start a consulting business and you go through this training, you get this map, it doesn't mean you're going to get clients and make money. Yeah. You've still got to do the work. Yeah. Like, you got to get on the treadmill and you got to run.
Right.
And when you get a map, you still got to walk through the woods.
I heard a joke once that most people, the most calories they lose when they get a treadmill is just setting it up, and that's it.
Yeah, it's true, man.
And it's fascinating because we've both been in different industries and things, and it's a very consistent thing where people, they get really excited about something, and then they'll learn it, and then they won't do anything with it. And I would say the only benefit of a 9-to-5 job is the structure. You're forced to do it, right? You're at the desk and you get yelled at when you don't do anything. And that's why most people have 9-to-5 jobs. There is a difference between people who need to be forced to do something and people who have that self-drive. Now, to us, it's pretty obvious where that self-drive comes from. But in your experience with students, because you've worked hand in hand with a lot of folks, what are some of the basic things that can help people, especially when they're just getting started, to not psych themselves out? You look at all these numbers, and maybe all you want to do is make an extra $1,000 a month or something. You want to, let's start with the low-hanging fruit. If you did one sale a month and you charge $1,000, that'd be $1,000 a month. It's not an ideal business model for sure, but what is it that you've worked with people to kind of work through those mental barriers to say, well, I can't do it. Like, I can't actually execute like that, like Sam did, or your students. Some of those mental things you're never going to be able to, you can draw them to water, you can't make them drink, kind of thing. But what are some of those common things you see that you have to address with people?
Well, it's daunting when you look too far ahead.
Yeah. So
I always tell people, like, imagine you're on a dark road at nighttime, and the headlights only show you so far in front, and that's enough for you to get safely to your destination. You don't need the headlights to show you the whole way. You only need to see the next couple of steps.
Correct.
And it's the same in business. I mean, when I got started, all I wanted to make was 100 grand a year New Zealand, which is only about 62,000 US dollars. So that was my number. I was like, if I can make 100,000 New Zealand dollars, I'm going to be rich.
Yeah.
And so that was all I aimed for. I thought that was beyond my wildest imaginations. So, like, I mean, you don't...
The goalpost changes, but if you start with too far, you're going to get discouraged, right?
Just look at
don't
the
shoot
next
for
steps
$1 million.
ahead.
Right.
So right now, I mean, you know, it's just those 3 steps: your niche and your offer, then a predictable way to generate appointments, and then a predictable way to convert those appointments into customers. If you just achieve those 3 things, which, by the way, you could achieve over the next 2-3 weeks, then that's all you need to worry about. You don't need to worry about anything else. A lot of my students, they join this program and they're like, do we need to register a bank account, and do we need to open a company and do all of these different things? I'm like, don't do any of that until you get your first client saying, how do I pay?
Yeah.
Because that's what I did. So when my client was like, send me the invoice,
Get your priorities right?
I was like, oh my God, I got to register a company quick.
How many people, I mean, the biggest mistake that I could figure out is so many people start with an idea, right? They get this great idea and it's just in their head. Like I've talked to somebody a while back, they had an idea they've been working on for 2 years. I'm like, well, have you tested, or have you at least tried to, and he's like, no, I'm still formulating. And I'm like, fail fast, like fail on the idea as fast as you can, or succeed. Like most ideas are really bad. The execution is where the money is. Now, we have this workshop that's going on tomorrow. Now, Sam does have a program, which I'll let him talk a little bit about, with your guys' permission, as far as, I know a lot of you are getting a lot of value of this, and hopefully there'll be a replay where we can see the 3 broken out. But it did see a few questions in there. Do you have a more in-depth program? And I want to just mention it because Ty's actually, we've been sending out some emails about it, and it's been going on. He's actually opened it back up this week, and it's called the Consulting Accelerator, right? And it's where you really, like, for the top people who really want to get involved in this, they can actually learn in depth the different methods, and you can talk about exactly what's in it. But I want to make sure I share with them the URL for that, for folks who, maybe you're looking to actually work with Sam, right? Yeah, let's go ahead. We'll pop that at the top piece here, because Sam is selling a course on this that we've had. While I'm writing this up, why don't you tell them about the gal who signed up and she ended up taking a sick day at work? I thought that was one of the funniest stories.
Yeah. So I've been doing this training for about the past, this live workshop for the past couple of weeks with Ty, and someone joined the program, and was this girl from Australia, and she had no experience in sales, no experience in marketing, no experience with business or anything. She was working a 9-to-5 job, very normal, sort of person in life, and she joined the program and found her niche and her offer within her first week. And then in the second week, she started generating appointments, and someone said, can you come and meet with us? And she had a 9-to-5 job, and she was like, oh my God, how am I going to meet with this company? So she took a sick day. She faked a sick day. She called her employer or her office.
You don't have to do that, by the way. It's not in the course to take a sick day, but maybe a Saturday.
Yeah, this isn't in the training, but I mean, she this is what she did, and so she took a sick day, and then she turned up to do this this consultation with this company, and she said her cheeks were bright red, and she was like sweating, and she was so afraid she was going to forget how to do it that she had to write it all down, like so. And she, she was completely outside of her comfort zone, but she took a day off work, went and did it, and picked up her first client. And that was within the first 10 days of being in this program. And that's just, there's countless stories like that. Like those numbers I stated before, they are understated. Like there's actually more than that. I don't have the exact numbers, so that's why I had to be prudent and write up, on the lower level. But there's just countless stories every day of people who have gone through this training and gone out there and made it happen. The difference between the training I have and the training most other people have is because I practice what I preach, and when I say be a specialist, I mean it. Like, I plan to talk about and help people start consulting businesses for the rest of my life. Like, I'm not going to do anything else. And I don't think about anything else. I don't want to ever do anything else. And a lot of people out there in the industry, they'll say, here's how to do a training on, selling t-shirts, or here's how to do something on selling dog tags on Amazon, or selling lunch boxes on Amazon, or,
they jump around a lot.
Or they're like, here's this new thing, which there's this loophole in it, and we can exploit this thing.
And there's, it's interesting, and not to interrupt, but there is a $1 million opportunity that you haven't taken, and it's mainly out of that principle, right? Like, you've sold this course for the last few years, keep refining it, and you've sold millions of dollars worth of that course. Now, you could go make a course on how to sell that course, right? You could, but you've chosen not to because it's not in line with what you're doing. Like, it's not, like, you are so focused on the consulting that this is the one course you have, this is the one training you have, and it's not like you have all these different levels and there's this intertwined crazy marketing thing. This is it. This is everything they need to do what you've to learn what you're doing, right? And you put it all in one place. And that's why we got so excited at Ty Lopez to promote it, not just the stories and the fact that people are already being successful with it, but that this is your specialty, right? And Ty is very knowledgeable on a lot of different subjects, and a benefit of that, like, you can learn everything about everything that you want, and you can actually use that knowledge to help you in other areas. Like, if you learn Facebook marketing, you're going to learn a heck of a lot about copywriting, and vice versa. But you don't have to sell both, right? They're intertwined, right? And all these books, everything, the more you learn is great. Like, you should read tons of books, you should do lots of things, but when it comes to actually executing a map, like, you don't want a map that takes you in 1,000 different directions. You want a concise, and it's a 42-day program, is that right?
6 weeks, yeah.
6 weeks. So the idea is it's specific actions every week that you take.
We can map them out.
Yeah. Why don't we'll keep this page up here.
I'll map out the modules. Okay. You can rewrite this up the top when I flip this over.
All right. I got a little better handwriting, so we got a handwriting expert on here, by the way.
Well, I'll let you write. And
okay, cool. You spell it out.
I'll speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, this training, it really is like my life's work. Like, I put everything really I've got into this. Like, and that's why I've been able to grow my business so rapidly, and why I've been able to get so much success for other people. And like, I'm not one of those people who teaches a program and then disappears and then comes back a year later and is teaching a new program just because they need to make like some money. I've stuck to this. I'm only ever going to stick to this. And like, I talk to my students, and we have meetups and things like that, and we've got a running competition that happens all the time, where if you get to 6 figures with your consulting business, you get a personal invitation to come hang out with me at my place in Manhattan. And so pretty much every month or every 2 months, I block out a day on the weekend, and we get a group together and we come hang out. So there's actual rolling competitions where people come hang out with me and we talk about consulting. I mean, my best students, the guys who have gotten to 7 figures, like, we all text and talk on the phone, and I've got video testimonials of all of these people, and you can see some of them if you go to this URL right here, samovens.com/Ty. So I'll just talk about what's in the 6-week program. It's designed in such a logical, specific way. Yeah. So it's not like you get access to this program and you're like, what do I do first? I show you exactly how to allocate your time. So week 1 is your niche and offer. For obvious reasons, most people would probably, I've met consultants who have been in business for 30 or 50 years and they still don't have their niche. And, most people, like 99% of consultants, don't have a niche. Well, in the first 7 days of this program, we get you crystal clear on your niche and your offer. So we get that knocked out in 7 days, which is, most people would take years to do this.
I don't even know if I have mine clearly defined yet. Maybe we should talk about that.
And then week 2 is how to sell. And this is very important. Like, once you generate an appointment, I was talking to you before, once you generate an appointment, what do you say in that appointment? Like, a lot of people can go out and generate appointments. I mean, you could probably call up people and some of them are going to say, sure, come in and let's talk. But if you don't know what to say in that appointment, you're going to blow it. Yeah. And that's not just, that's not just some sort of exaggeration. That's the truth. Like, you're going to screw it up. There's very
specific ways, and it's funny, this subject, like, there's thousands of books written on it, and we've both probably read our fair share, right? And what's fascinating is, as thick as these books are, the process is fairly simple once you understand the principles. And this was, like, I started going through just kind of reviewing some of the content in there. This was my favorite section because it's such an abstract subject to most people, and you got it down condensed to a very simple process, and it's very consistent results, are a very consistent system to actually talking to people, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, this is why my process is better here, is because I'm a specialist. So if you got a book on sales, it has to be general to compensate for everyone doing sales. So it's like, here's how to sell anything to anyone.
Yeah.
That's basically
a
sales book is. Yeah. But this process is specifically how to sell your consulting services. And people who have no background in sales come into this, and with,
it's like the gal who took the sick day. She said she was sweating out of her eyeballs.
Dude, it's scary. Like, it takes if you go at this alone, you're going to screw up hundreds.
And most business owners, they don't have, like, this. The scary side of it is they've heard everything and they're busy, and, like, a lot of times you got to know what they're going to be like. Like she said in that comment, that they did exactly what you said they would, and that is such a comforting. Fear comes from not knowing what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. If you can know in generalities what someone is how they're going to react to a thing, then you're gonna be much less fearful. You may be in the moment. Once you experience it, though, she said, I sat there and I was quiet, and they said exactly what you said, and they made the sale. So that was, to me, that's like the coolest section. I know there's a lot more, but from a personal standpoint, it took me so many years. Like, I've been selling since I was 18, and I'm 10 years now. Geez. So I would not even say I was even like this. I was still grabbing things out of it. I was like, okay, gosh, I need to actually pay attention to this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty good. Like, I've had people, like, this isn't, I've had people who come in and they've never read anything on sales and they love it. But I've also people who are already making millions of dollars by this program. Yeah. And they're like, wow, this is the most powerful thing I've ever learned. Yeah. So, like, it's even people at the highest levels who are already making millions.
Well, and it has some scripts, right?
Yeah, so I give you a full training on how to do it. Mm-hmm. Then I actually give you my script. So I've created this script and I give it to you, and you can print it out and you can rehearse it, and then you can actually, have it with you when you're doing your consultations. So you just follow the script. Mm-hmm. And I even release some recorded calls, which I've done, so you can listen to how I do it. And you can learn from real life stuff instead of just theory. So this module is really awesome. Then the third one is 6 ways to get appointments organically. So I want to show you how to generate appointments, first of all, for free, because I've got paid methods for generating appointments. Like, I've got probably one of the best, if not the best ways out there right now to generate appointments using Facebook. And the thing about using Facebook is it requires a little bit of money to put in ad spend. And if you have that, that's awesome. But I wanted to make this program still work for people who don't have any money to spend on ads. Right. Because I understand that not everyone has money.
Maybe they're living in their garage, their parents' garage, right?
Yeah. And so 6 ways to get organic appointments. These are 6 ways that are proven and they're free. So these I've created templates and instructions and training on how to get appointments immediately and without spending a dime on advertising. So we get you a niche and offer, we teach you how to sell, and then we start getting you appointments without spending any money. Then the 4th week is that is our appointment generating machine. So once we get you some clients organically and you're starting to make some money, that's when I recommend that you start to invest some of that money into paid advertising and on Facebook. And I've got what I call an appointment generating machine, which is a proven process which I've got to take someone off of Facebook through to a scheduled appointment in your calendar. And if you were to go and build this thing on your own, you'd probably spend 300 hours to figure out how to make it work, or you'd probably pay someone.
You could pay me to do it, and it costs quite a bit.
Probably, yeah. Most people would charge 30 to 50 grand to build that thing out.
Yeah.
Or 300 hours. I mean, these aren't exaggerations. Like,
no, that's what I charge.
Yeah. And so I literally give you my appointment generating machine. So you get the templates, you just upload them, you copy, paste pretty much everything I give you. You change out different pieces so it works for your niche, obviously. And so you make it fit for you, and then you've got your appointment generating machine live. And this is an awesome machine. I use it, and my clients use it to generate, a lot of appointments. When I turn it on, I'm getting about 20 appointments a day, and from that, I just cherry pick 5. So that's what you get in week 4. Then in week 5, I have what's called $1 Million Facebook training. And this is how to use Facebook advertising to generate consulting clients. So there's a lot of trainings out there which show you how to use Facebook ads. But again, this is the discipline of Facebook applied specifically to consulting and generating clients. And I've gone out and I've flown around the world and learned from the best people at Facebook. So I've probably bought every training, read every book, and I've worked with, I found out like who's the best in the world at running Facebook ads. And then I found out who that person is, and I'm like, how much would it cost me to hire you so I can fly over to your house and you can teach me everything for like 4 days? And, I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars learning Facebook. And it's really gotten to the point where, with all of my training, I don't feel comfortable selling it until I feel like this is the best in the world.
Yeah.
And so I've really gone to the extent of understanding this, and people have been through all trainings and they come through this and they're like, this is hands down the best Facebook training I've ever seen.
Well, and it's specific to consulting too. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. There's so many Facebook courses out there, right? You can go to lynda.com and get a Facebook advertising training. The problem with that is it's not specific and it's not results based. So it's not. This has been tried and tested with how much would you say you spent on Facebook ads? It's got to be $750 grand at least, right? You spent
becoming close to $1 million.
Yeah. So there's one thing that's called theory where it's like, I think this is how it works. And there's another thing called I invested a lot of money to test these systems. So that's the big difference between, maybe you go Facebook for Dummies, which is going to show you how to set up a Facebook ad, versus something like this where I've invested almost $1 million in advertising spend to get the right methods, right? And that's where when I'm trying to learn something in marketing, my job is to market product, right? And whenever I see somebody doing something that I want to learn, I do what you do. I go and I interview them, I buy their time, I do what I can to learn as much as I can. What's nice that you've done for everyone here is distilled that into, so this is a week, right? So you are taking people 1 week at a time, and they're able to digest all this in about a week, right?
Yeah, so about 3 to 4 hours a week to go through all of this training and then apply it. And it's, I've got a lot of people who do this on the side of a 9-to-5 job. Mm-hmm. So they either wake up earlier or they go to bed later or they do it on the weekends.
They watch Game of Thrones a little later in the evening. Is that what they're doing?
Probably.
I would give up one Game of Thrones episode for that. Not sure about 2.
I'd give up the season. I'd give up everything.
Okay, all right. For 7 figures, I think I would deal with that. All right. So what do we got on this last week? Because this
and this last week is called Scaling to 6 Figures and Beyond. So I teach you everything you need to actually get your first clients within the first few weeks. But then, I'm not really interested in just helping people make an extra few $100s. I know there's lots of courses out there which are like how to make an extra few $100s a week or something. I don't want to teach people how to do that stuff because I know how really how useless it is. I mean, once you generate an extra $200, within a week, you're going to have figured out how to spend that, and you're going to be absolutely no different.
And it'll probably cost you about $500 to generate that $200.
So like if you're going to make a change, it should, and this is my belief. I'm not saying this is right. I'm just saying this is how I feel, and this is the way I've designed this training. Like, if you're going to do something, do it big. Like, if you're going to start your own business, make $1 million. Don't make, a little bit more than your job, because, it's either, that's the way I feel. So in the last week here, I teach you how to scale to 6 figures and beyond. So really how to take the first few clients you've got and then really scale it up to the point where you're making 6 figures or even 7 figures.
Awesome. Well, that is, in summary, the program. Now, let's talk about the cost of it, because it's interesting. There's a couple different options, and I'll let you talk about that. But the beauty of it is, if I like to put things in compare things. So when I went to college, I went to 2-year college, and it ended up costing me $48,000. And I learned how to use Photoshop, and I went to a web design school and learned CSS, and I'd take classes like Western Civilization, right? And I kid you not, per class was $2,400. So to go learn college level English was $2,400. And there's always the experience of college. Oh, okay, sorry. But yeah, what's interesting about this program is it's not 10,000, it's not 20,000. It's Sam's put it in a way that's scalable for almost anyone. You can get started at $2,000, and there's also a payment plan, right? There's if they're
it's
looking
$2,000 or 4 payments of $597.
Yeah, so Sam's been doing this for years, and he's consolidated this down to help as many people as possible, and that's why he's put it in this digital format, right? So you can reach more and more people. But it's not going to cost you a college degree. You don't have to go and burn $10,000 to get started. You can get started for just $2,000, or the 4 payments here of $597.
Yeah, and another good way to put it is, I teach all of my students how to price their services at a minimum of $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
So I don't teach you how to create a service that's $500 or anything like that. The minimum is $2,000 a month. So, this is what you'll get from your first client on the first month. So you apply these strategies, you get your first client, and on the first month, you've covered your investment.
Yeah.
Now that client's going to stick with you for longer than a month. So let's say they stick with you on the second month, you get another $2,000. Well, now you've already made profit. Yeah. And like the worst case scenario is most of the time clients stick for 12 months, 18 months or longer. Yeah. But let's say you get a client and you only get one, which by the way, I would feel like I had done an appalling job. If all you got is one client, like I would consider that not a failure.
Yeah.
So let's say you only get one client and they only stick with you for 3 months, which again is a failure. So like double fail. Your total revenue is $6,000. Yeah. Your investment for the program's $2,000. Like you still make $4,000.
Yeah.
And that's like talking worst case stuff.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's a lot of programs out there. They don't do refunds. They don't let you, do things like that. Sam's actually, like you said, you consider yourself a failure if someone's not succeeding at this, right? So you've actually included a 30-day refund as well for folks who, basically, if they sign up, it just turns out to not be a fit. Because the thing is, you do have to work at this, right? You do have to go through the training.
If you're not planning on doing any work, don't even buy it.
There you go. That's the easiest way to solve that problem.
Like if you don't want to do this, I don't want. Yeah. Don't even just give up.
Yeah.
Go lie down.
Go do something else. Yeah. Go take a nap.
That's what I say. I say if go lie down.
Yeah. Love it. All right, so that sums up the product, Sam's. We want to talk about that just a little bit because we're going to get into some Q&A here. And if anybody has any questions about Sam's program, the Consulting Accelerator, if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask us now. But we're gonna go through some of the questions here, and what I'm going to do, Sam, is I'm going to jump back just for a second, pull some of the questions together, and then we'll come back. But why don't you talk a little bit about like maybe some of your students, what they've gone through. And then we'll be back in a second. And folks that are watching live, Appreciate it. We're going to have Ty on here in a bit. If you have any questions, now is a perfect time. We've seen a few come in, but go ahead, share your questions. You have questions about consulting, about what Sam does, how he does it, where he got to start, anything like that. Go ahead, pop it in, and we'll take a look at those now.
So someone's saying here, what about SEO consulting? I mean, yeah, that's a skill, right? So if your skill is SEO, then this is how I've got a lot of people who do SEO in my program. And the big mistake most SEO people make is they're generalist SEO people. They say, I help people with SEO. That's not very specialized. That's being a general practitioner. So I've worked with a lot of people who do SEO, and I'm like, okay, well, where is SEO most needed? And we look at some industries, and we find that plastic surgery, SEO, very valuable. And specifically like breast implants, like that's one of the most profitable things for plastic surgeons to sell. And so, if you help plastic surgery practices which specialize in breast implants with SEO, boom, you are going to run laps around SEO people. Right. Like while everyone else is out there saying, I help people with SEO, you're saying, I help plastic surgery practices generate more high-end clients through SEO. And then if you build up a track record of that, boom, like you're flying. No other SEO person is going to touch you.
Right.
So yeah, for SEO, absolutely. I mean, this program works for every different niche. I mean, one of the most common questions we get is, will this work for me? Everyone thinks that their thing is special. Yeah. I mean, I've seen all sorts of stuff happen with this. It's really this works for any niche. I can honestly say that because this stuff is universal. I've helped people who sell things which aren't even to do with money, like weight loss, spiritual stuff. I've got spiritual coaches who use this, relationship advice. I've got a guy who, this is one of my most interesting clients. Uh-huh. He's a family crisis consultant.
Huh.
And
that's pretty niche.
He helps wealthy families who are in family crisis, and he consults them. And his backstory is so badass. He for like 10 years was a terrorist negotiator. I'm not kidding.
That's perfect.
I know. I was like, well, that qualifies you to deal with a family crisis.
Yeah.
If this guy talked terrorists, and he's met with them, he's talked them out of threats and things like that. He's met with them in prison. He's done this for years, and he's studied it. And now that he's retired from that, he helps family crises. And that's got nothing to do with money, but we've used this same model to help get him clients and everything like that. I told you about the guy in Vegas. He helps people with craps. The world is big enough that for everyone always thinks you need to offer a lot of things, and you need to be broad to make money. Like the Chinese restaurant thinks they're going to pick up more clients by offering more items. Yeah. But then you've got In-N-Out Burger, which offers just one burger. Yeah. And McDonald's has made this mistake, by the way. Recently, McDonald's has widened up their menu big time. Yeah. Read through their P&Ls, they're dying.
Right.
McDonald's is fading out. It's because they've gone and broadened out. And someone like In-N-Out Burger who's focused, I mean, you can look for this phenomenon everywhere in business. I mean, the specialist who focuses and stays there always wins. Yeah. So we took a bit of a tangent, but back to the SEO question, absolutely, taking that skill of SEO, and this will turn you'll be able to generate clients for your SEO skill.
Nice, very nice. It's a great question, and there's just a few about the pricing. It is a for-pay. It's one time per month, so every 30 days it'll rebill.
So $597 today, and then $597 every 30 days until 4 payments are made.
4 payments. So really good deal here Sam's putting up for us. And the training is it's all virtual, so that's the best part of this is you can do it from the comfort of your own home, where you're going to be starting with your consulting agency. So it's actually, you don't have to fly to New York. You don't have to fly anywhere. You don't have to drive anywhere if you are in New York. And then you also do some touch-in calls, things like that, with the members, things like that. But let's see.
One of the most valuable things is probably the Facebook group. Gotcha. So I I really fluked this. Like, I was like, let's start a Facebook group when I first started it and didn't think it would be anything really. But since I've been doing this for like 4 years, the group's growing and it's become awesome and it's really become a community. So when you join, you get access to the Facebook group and you can see all the guys in there who I talk about. So in a lot of programs, they tell you that people have, like, there's been 9 millionaires with the program, right? Like,
They're in your
but then
Facebook
you're
group.
like, well, who are they? You never get to see their name or their face. You know, it's just kind of a claim with no evidence to back it up. Well, not only do I show you who those guys are, but they're live in the Facebook group. So you can see them posting and you can actually like message them and be like, hey, did you really make that much money?
What cracks me up about that too is I've promoted all kinds of things and through the years learning about new products, things like that. What I find fascinating about that is, like you said, where are these folks that they helped? And they're all here. They're in this mastermind group. You actually get access to that when you join. And then also, Ty, and I forgot to mention this, I wrote it down on the other page, but Ty has actually put in a bonus as well. So Ty has a special sales training on how to be persuasive, and he's actually including that it's in the 6th week of the program, but it's a great training that he put together on how to actually get more sales. So it's just icing on the cake. Sam's got you covered on all the content, but Ty's actually thrown in a special bonus for this.
I think he usually sells it for $1,000.
Yeah. So
he's throwing in that for
it's top tier content. I mean, if you were to buy any of these out, I mean,
the Facebook training's worth $10,000, and
right.
like without any word of exaggeration.
That's the beauty of this, is it's all packaged, it's all put together. There's a few more great questions here. This is a great one. They ask, how long do you typically spend with a customer who is paying you $2,000 a month? Is that 1 week, one times per week, for an hour? What are the time frames? And I know it's going to depend, but if you could give
when you first start, it's going to be a bit longer. So like when you first start out, it might be a whole day or something. But the more you do it, the better you get. Yeah. And so this brings me into another cool point. When you're a generalist, every client you work with is new territory, new uncharted territory. So let's say you're doing SEO and you help a plumber get more business. Then next week you get a lawyer. Now you have to go back to the drawing board. Like, how do I make this work for lawyers? My God, it's opening up a whole nother book. But when you stick to one thing, you work with one plumber, you get him clients with SEO. Then you work with another plumber, just rinse and repeat. Then you work with another one, the same thing, another one, the same thing. And when you repeat that again and again, you get really good at it. Yeah. Which means that you develop your processes and you've got so much confidence, and it means you can just keep working with more and more clients and just doing the same thing again and again. And so once you're on a roll, like a lot of people in my program, they only spend 2 or 3 hours a month with a client to get $2,000 a month, which is pretty awesome.
Herman is giving us the salute. How you doing,
So
man?
when you start out a bit longer, like you might do a whole day, but once you get on a roll, a lot less. And there's so many benefits of being a specialist. I mean, I could probably
I'll tell you from my experience when I was doing general just everything marketing. I would build a website for somebody. I'd be working on getting them leads through Facebook. I'd be doing all these different things, right? And I just remember the phone calls of like, so my girlfriend thought the picture on the front page was a little too black and white. Can we make it less black and white? I'll never forget that. And I about had a mental breakdown at that point because it was like I was doing everything.
You're an order taker.
Yeah, exactly. It was basically I was McDonald's and my menu was 6 foot long. That's not the same. But the idea was like I would have to take a call on everything, right? So I wasn't specialized
because they don't see you as the expert. They just see you as the person fulfilling the order.
Exactly.
So this is. When you pick a niche and when you're a specialist, you're seen as the trusted advisor. So what you say goes and they listen. So if you're like, no, this picture works best, they'll listen to you. But and that's what happens when you like, let's say you're doing website design for plumbers, they won't argue because they know that you know what you're doing. But if you're a generalist, they're going to think they know better than you. Yeah. And so they're going to be like, nah, I want that move there, that move there. I put up with that too. I remember,
and you might have to a little bit at the start, like just to get your bearings. If you make a mistake and you're not niche enough, And that's where that two-tier niche is like, I am an expert at this within this industry. That is where the world starts to change as a consultant. Because I'm sure we've got lots of freelancers on here, right? And they're like, it's feast and famine is the term that's used, because you're only charging $2,000 a project per month, right? And then it's like maybe $2,000. This is $2,000 a month, every month if you get the right kind of client. So that is where you're finding the biggest success. Do you find that it's easy to make a transition from being a generalist to specializing if they have already, maybe we've got a few on the call that are already an expert or have a consulting agency?
Yeah, well, to be honest, it's just like it's harder to be unsuccessful than it is to be successful. Yeah. It's harder to be a generalist than it is to be a specialist. Yeah. So in business and in life, really, it's harder not to be good than it is to be good. Like when you've got a successful business, it really is quite easy, right? Like things just flow for you. When you've got a bad business, it's a non-stop battle. Right. So often people think to make more money, it's harder. Like I think it's easier. But so to move from being a generalist to a specialist, I mean, that's what I do every day with all these people. Right. Most people join this program actually not having anything going. Right. So I'd say 99% of the people who join this don't know what their niche is. They don't know what skills they're going to provide. And that's why this first module shows you exactly how to do that. Yeah. Nice. But then we do have people who join who are already consultants, and I help them specialize.
Brilliant, brilliant. And if you're just joining us, we're talking a little bit about Sam's in-depth consulting training. There's folks on here who, we've been talking about the 3-step process, right? And he's broken it into a 6-week program. You'll see actually a button below, above and below. Look at that. We got buttons all over the place. Where you can check out more details on Sam's program, and also there's a special bonus from Ty for that. And we're doing some Q&A right now with folks who've been on for a while. So we've got a few more questions here. Here's a couple good ones. Let's start with the top one here. I've started a leadership, personality, and professional growth and transformation coaching and training business. How will this program help me generate clients? And I feel like I can almost answer it by just those 3 steps he's given me, but I'll let you do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it absolutely will help you get clients, and it'll start by helping you really get that message clearer. I mean, I can hardly read it, but leadership, personal and professional growth and transformation coaching and training business. I mean, I don't even know what that means, man. Like, that message alone, that way which you've described what you do, that isn't going to work. Sorry if that's abrupt, but that's the truth. Like, you need to work on that message. It's nowhere near clear enough, for one. And for 2, it doesn't talk about the benefit which your client's going to get. So, the person when you say what you do, first of all, someone needs to self-identify themselves. They need to say, that's me. No one can identify that that's them with that statement. The second thing is you're not talking about what people get. You're just talking about what you do. So what are you actually helping people achieve? Are you helping people, become happier? Are you helping people become better communicators? I mean, you need to talk about the outcome or the benefit or the specific thing which someone's going to get from what you do. So I can say without a word of doubt, this training program will certainly help you. I mean, we would start off right in week 1 by getting you really clear on your niche and offer, and then we'd set up a way to sell this, and then, we'd help generate you appointments, and you'd be off. We got more?
Yeah, we got a few more questions, and my mic died.
Oh, okay.
We'll just get closer. There we go. How do I establish credibility at the age of 21 when clients may see me as inexperienced? Well, you're about that age when you guys started, right? How do you get you're right in your ball court, man. What do you got for them?
Well, the cool thing about the way the world is today, like the older generation looks to the younger generation with advice about new things. Like, it's like in households, when they're choosing which internet provider to go with or what new computer should they get for the family, they don't call up their grandpa, right? Like they don't go, or they don't even trust themselves. They ask their children. They're like, you guys know about this stuff, what should you do? And when it comes to like the internet, online marketing, social media, technology, when it comes to all of these different things, people look to younger people for the advice, and quite often it's an advantage. I started when I was 20, so I was younger than you are now when I started. I'm 26 right
you look
now.
20 now, yeah.
I'm not even.
Once you're confident too, right? That's a big difference I've found. Like if you go through this training, you're going to be more confident in what you're actually doing. I think the misconception here is with age, it's like, well, they're not confident. And if you were to maybe going out and selling retirement plans, maybe it'd be a little bit tougher. But for the most part, like if you're in the consulting niche, which is a huge part of consulting is digital, the digital space. Like,
plus, it's not about you at all.
Yeah.
Like people only care about themselves. And if you have what someone wants, they'll buy it from you even if you're one. Yeah. Like, without a word of exaggeration, like if there was I'm using like hyperbole for effect here. So this, don't take this out of context, but let's say there's a baby and it's 1 year old, but it somehow knows how to solve this one business problem. No one's going to discriminate. No one's going to be like, I'm not paying that person because they're a baby. If they can solve the problem, people will pay.
And if they would discriminate, then you probably don't want them as a client anyways, because they're going to judge you.
People want outcomes.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And if you have the ability to get them the outcome, they don't care. Yeah. And so that's why a lot of people will fly across the world to work with an expert. They'll put themselves through pain. They'll pay more money. Like, it's all about the outcome. And, if you're really good at what you do, you can provide the outcome. No one's going to care. But at 21, man, that's like...
You're old already. You're getting old now.
Like...
Yeah, it's great. So there's a couple more here. So if you're concentrating on one industry, right, this is a great question. I actually was thinking about this a bit. I've had to deal with this in the past. Let's say for SEO, for instance, or Facebook ads, or really any kind of like marketing skill. How, if you're in one general area, how do you not have a conflict of interest? Say you're just with plumbing companies and you're getting everybody up listed for that city in SEO. What's some of the ways that you can specialize in an industry and not have conflict within a certain area?
Well, it's just the way it is. I mean, if you call up and you want internet connected for your business, they don't say, sorry, we've already given internet to this other business. Like, it's the way it is. I mean, people always get stressed out about exclusivity, but if you can offer exclusivity, but my God, you've got to price it high.
Yeah.
Like, I did an exclusivity agreement in New Zealand when I worked with the top 4 accounting firms. So I was talking with Deloitte and Price Waterhouse, and when I signed with Price Waterhouse to do some stuff for them, they made me sign exclusivity against the other guys.
But you made it worth your while.
They paid for it. It's like,
so you almost have to it just changes the rate. And you give it to them as a benefit if that's what they want. You say, that comes at a cost. And another thing, most smaller businesses, like just doing SEO, for instance, you could get it down to the zip code and probably be fine if you wanted to do exclusivity without going like full city level. Like
you can work with
regions,
2 people in the same place, even if they're down the road. Yeah. Like, that business owner can't dictate you. They can't be like...
Shouldn't let them anyways, right?
Well, yeah what... Like,
it ruin your business, right?
You could offer it at the price, like, let's say you're charging $2,000 a month to do SEO for plumbers. Let's say, if you offered an exclusivity agreement, I'd make it $10,000 a month in that specific area. And so that's their option. When people give you objections, give them an option, but make the natural choice of their options be what they're getting anyway. Because at least that way they've got the choice and they put themselves into it.
So what about international clients? This is a pretty cool one, but have you worked, you and your students, geography doesn't really make a huge difference, but that's a good question here. Can you have people all over the world as clients?
Absolutely. So when I started out in just my local city because that's all I was confident to do. And then I figured out how to take it nationwide in New Zealand. But then when I really figured out these things here, so the appointment generating machine and the $1 Million Facebook, when I figured these out, that's when things took off for me, and I started to target Australia. Australians started buying. I was like, it's a long shot. I'll try America.
Yeah.
And then Americans bought way more than anything else I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm moving there.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided.
You're still technically a New Zealand citizen, so you're international right now.
I moved to America because I figured out how to make it work in America, and I would suggest the same thing. I mean, I've got guys who operate their business in Europe, because in Europe right now there's a lot of places where the economy ain't too great. So guys in Spain and guys are in different areas around there, and they're targeting London, and they're targeting the US, and even though they're still living and operating out of Spain, because the market isn't too flash there, so it works perfectly fine. I mean, like I was selling people in America when I was in New Zealand, and I've got a New Zealand accent, and like they didn't know who I was. I had no address in America or anything.
You talked to them like 3 a.m. then, huh?
Yeah, well, I used to wake up real early to catch the time zones. And people, because I knew what I was doing, people bought. And this training is set up so that you can be international. Because the way the world is right now, you don't want to be pigeonholed to one specific place.
Yeah, and that's a good point with even like SEO or any really digital service.
Grab one of these.
Sure, absolutely. The being able to diversify different regions and things, like you may be able to sell prices much higher in say New York than Alabama. Like you might have a harder time finding that 2K per client in your small town. You can go out to the next big city or even the next big state. I mean, that's where I started really seeing an impact in my business. I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my top client I ever had in Cincinnati was 20,000, and it was like a home run for me. I was like, awesome. I started diversify. I was getting clients in San Diego, New York, and they wouldn't even bat an eye at 20,000. They were just super. I was more nervous than it was such a hassle in my small town to get that 20K sale, where it just somewhere else it was way easier because they deal with that value all the time. So those are the kinds of things, like international is actually a very good thing. So let's jump into a few more questions. So he's talking about the music industry here. He says, I write songs, make instruments, and engineer songs. How will this allow me to draw in clients? And what clients should I go after first? Which is kind of a broad question, but the idea there is basically he's in the music industry. He does consulting with, I'm not sure if he's selling actual music. It sounds like he's consulting with people to sell music as an industry.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'd start off in week one. This is the best starting place all the time, because we want to look at, in your industry, which is, let's just define it loosely as the music industry, right?
Yeah.
We want to figure out what are their most painful problems. So we want to do some research into that industry and see, what makes people in the music industry wake up in the middle of the night sweating. Like, what are they afraid of? What are their aspirations and their desires? We want to figure out what makes them tick. And there will be stuff. There always is. People always have things that they're worried about. And so we want to figure out what those are. And then we want to figure out how you can solve those with the skills which you mentioned here. So you have writing songs, instrumentals. How can you use the skills you've got to solve these painful problems for those people in that industry? It always is the same thing. It's taking inventory of what you've got and then seeing how we can solve problems. Most of the time, people just look at what they've got and then try to sell it to anyone. Yeah. But it has to be attached to a problem. And when you attach it to a problem, it's no longer writing songs. It's no longer making instrumentals. It's fixing that guy's problem. Yeah. And that's worth more money. And, that's why in week one of this program, we get super clear on this, because until you get clear on this, nothing can happen. Yeah. And I could just teach you how to sell, or I could teach you how to generate appointments. it's not going to work. And that's why I call week one like the foundations. If you build a house on sand, it's going to fall over. If you build a consulting business without getting this right, it's going to fall over.
Well, and maybe his niche he's figured out. He's writing songs, making instrumentals, and engineering songs. But
he's got his niche,
whom?
he's got his skills,
Right.
he needs to know the problems.
Offer. Right. So
Yeah.
that offer, what are you actually selling here, is the first thing to find. So let's jump in a few more questions. Actually, Ty's going to be coming down here in a few minutes, and what we'll do is have him bring some more questions to you from the consulting side. So how do you land your first client? I feel like even if I'm an expert in digital marketing and I give the best pitch to a potential client I've ever heard, they will still ask about my past results, which I don't have yet. So that's a good question. That's a very common one. Yeah,
it's a good one. So first of all, a lot of that is just a fear more than an actual reality. Like if you go, so this is how most people get that objection. It's because they go into the consultation making it about them. So if I go into a consultation and I say, I'm really good at this, I'm the best, trust me, I'm really good, and you just talk all about you, well, naturally what's going to happen is the prospect is going to question that. They're going to say, prove it, right? So a lot of the time people get that objection because they do the sale wrong. So you want to make it all about them, and you want to ask about their current situation, their desires, and what's stopping them from getting to where they want to go. And you want to make it all about them. And when you make it all about them, it's amazing what happens. Like, they don't ask questions like that. I've signed people up and they don't know really anything about me or where I'm from or what my company's called or anything. Like, they just know that I have what they want. And so a lot of the time it's a fear, and if you do the call the right way, then it doesn't really happen.
Yeah, and there's a key word to use here. They will still ask about the past results. They might not.
They won't if you do it properly. And
exactly.
If they do, I mean, I've got a module in the training which talks about how to get your first client in exchange for a testimonial and 3 referrals. So a lot of the time, when people are really low in confidence, so I recommend you come into this program and you try and make money right away. But if you are really not confident enough to start charging money right away, I recommend you come into the program and get your first client in exchange for 3 referrals and 1 testimonial. So you pitch them and you say, look, I'm trying to establish myself in this industry. I want to become the go-to person in this niche, and I want to really build a name for myself here. But I understand because you're my first client, there's the trust isn't fully there. So here's what I'm proposing. I propose, I do all of this work. I absolutely do my best stuff for you. And all I want in exchange is a testimonial and 3 referrals. You get them to do a testimonial for you. You get them to refer you to 3 people. You still get clients. It just delays it a couple of weeks, but then you've got that testimonial and you've got that to bring with you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people end up doing that in the program.
Nice. That's a brilliant way to look at it. And that's what I love about this program is you've seen it all, right? You've seen every level of competence, every level of skill, every level of where they are in their business. So a lot of times you have to make a module about that, right? And you have to address that fear or that discussion point. And a lot of times it is ourselves. Like our ego is so fragile that we're saying, what if they don't like us, or something like that. And it's not about you, it's about what you're offering. So if what I ended up doing early on in mine was doing way too many, by the way, free projects. And I didn't even have that built-in 3 referral thing. I just kind of winged it. I was like, I'm going to get a bunch of case studies. But it wasn't a clear exchange of value. That's why I really like that 3 referrals and a case study, because then they feel like they did pay you. And there's that final
and it's worth more than $2,000 to you anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So that's brilliant. I mean, if you got nothing else from this, if you're a freelancer on this call, that to me is worth $2,000, $10,000. What, like, if I would have known that early on, I would have saved myself about a year of free clients that I shouldn't have been doing. All right, so this is a good question, and I'll touch on this. She's got a good picture of what the 6-week course is about, how it works. Now, selecting the niche and offer, which we've been focusing really heavily on that first step because it's the first one that 99.9% of people need to start with. Like, if you've already solved this one, chances are you're well on your way through this process here. If you're dead set focused on what you're already doing and how you're doing it, chances are you're already making money and you're not too worried about that, even though you will benefit from these. But she asked about the way of generating appointments and a proven way to convert those appointments into customers. The proven way to convert is really having that first niche and offer selection down pat. But maybe we can talk for a minute about some of the organic ways that you've used, some of the strategies you and your students have used to get clients without the paid advertising side of it.
Sure. So one method I've got is cold email, which is we look through different people in your niche. Let's say you're helping plumbers. We would look for plumbers through Google, and we'd try and find their email addresses. And then I've got like 3 email templates which we use to email them. So as simple as just emailing somebody, but we do it a specific way. So I've tried it and I've figured out what works. You use these templates and you can just email people, and it's basically saying, hey, look, I've looked at your site. I can see you're making some mistakes. Are you free to talk for 10 minutes on this date or something like that? And, they work really well. So that's one method. Another one is direct mail. So sending someone something in the mail. I've got proven templates which we use.
Blew my mind. This was the first thing I got introduced to Sam. Sorry to interrupt, but this just stressing. This was the thing that got me hooked on what Sam was doing, because I was in the agency world and I saw the lumping mail method, and I was like, holy crap, it could be that easy, right? So sorry, I just had to interrupt because it was such a profound moment for me, and this was 2 or 3 years ago when you first started this course. That was powerful stuff, and this is such a simple thing. I'm sorry, I'll let you share it. But.
Yeah, well, I mean, I went through processes with my business. Like, I first started out just cold calling. I don't recommend that anymore. There's way easier ways to get clients. So that's not one of the methods I teach. But I started out cold calling, and then I moved to cold email, and then I moved to direct mail, and I was sending out direct mail, and then I was like, well, how do we make lumpy mail? How do we make direct mail better? And so I thought, well, let's make it lumpy, because when you get something in the mail and it's lumpy, you feel like you've gotten something from Amazon, or and it also gets past gatekeepers. Yeah. Like, if you send a business owner something in the post and it's lumpy, I took this to such a degree to master it, but I learned to address it in handwriting. You don't print the label, so you handwrite on it, and you say you say private, and then ... then the person's name, and then on the sender's address, you write a female's name with no other details. And when you're sending it to a male business owner, dude, like this gatekeeper's never gonna look. Like, the gatekeeper never checks it because it says it's private. It's from this anonymous lady, and
You're really thinking deep on that one. That's great.
It works.
No, yeah. Well,
it's stuff like that just makes a difference, because it doesn't look like it gets past the radar.
And guess who's not doing that? Is your competitors. Like, that's the big thing that I drew from that, is like, I would never think to do direct mail. I'm a digital agency, and then I was like, holy crap, like, everybody else is trying to do these ads and things to get these business owners. But if you find 10 key leads that and you taught basically how to go through the yellow book, like if they're spending $20,000 on half an ad in the yellow book, then they need some help with their marketing, right? So sending that to them through the mail, I was like, duh, right? And that to me was a big breaking point. I actually got a client once by buying them a book on Amazon, and it was a book about their industry and how to generate leads in it. And I in the gift receipt, I gave my pitch and I put a little YouTube video to them, and it was only it's only like 300 words, but the point is, there are ways without spending a ton of money to get in front of business owners who make millions a year. And that's another big part I know you go into.
That's just one of the 6.
Yeah, right, exactly. There's 6 ways. But the cool part too, you're selling to the right people with those methods, because you're not selling to broke companies. You're selling, they're already being successful.
Yeah, you're cherry picking the good ones.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not selling to like the local pizza shop who isn't going to be able to afford $2,000 a month. You're selling to people who who can actually afford your services?
Brilliant. Now, this is a good question. I have many talents, not sure which one to choose. She says so many talents. So how can you start to diversify? Like if you have a bunch to choose from, which is a great problem to have, right? Which one do you focus on, maybe grow and extend yourself into?
Yeah. So I got a process to do this, and it always works. So you've got to think, if someone had a gun to your head, and if you had to make a phone call and provide one of those skills, and you had to get them to agree, or the guy pulled the trigger and you died. So if you literally have a gun to your head and you have to make one phone call and you had to choose one of those skills, which skill would it be?
Right.
And I've never seen, because you have to choose, right?
Yeah.
And you might not feel comfortable with the choice, but what you choose in that situation is the one
you're most
to go
more
with.
confident with,
yep.
right?
And I use it for everything. Like when I need to make a decision and I'm torn and I'm indecisive, that's what a gun to your head, that you always come up with a good one.
Brilliant. So that's a good way. And a lot of people have a lot of skills, and they, maybe you might think to pick the one that you're most passionate about. But I've found in my experience, if you can hone in on one that you enjoy doing enough that doesn't make it we've got a puppy dog in here. This is awesome. Literal dog. We can't move the camera down, but hi puppy. And I have ADD, so literally anything that goes on I get drawn into. But picking a skill that at least has the nice benefit to a business, because at the end of the day, most businesses, we were talking about this morning, I mean, all businesses, their bottom line need is more leads and sales, right? So what skill do you have in that world? Now, if it's more personal development, things like that need is going to change. But with business, if you want to do business consulting, which one has the most likely impact on their bottom line? Because it's going to be the easiest one to sell and the easiest one to scale.
Yeah, just what people need.
Yep.
I mean, if business could be summed up in a sentence, it's find people's problems and solve them and charge money for it. Like that's all it is.
You'd be surprised how much they're willing to pay too to solve simple problems that we may think is simple. The more this business is doing, the more those little pains in the neck, those little thorns in the side, the more those are worth getting rid of. And if you are the expert, you are the person who pulls that thorn out, they're willing to pay you way more than a journalist to do that, because they just want to get rid of that little thorn. It could be little to us, but as you scale, those thorns get huge. Maybe you just are good at making standard operating procedures in Excel. But to $1 million per year business, if you can show how it directly affects their bottom line, you could sell that for 20, 30 grand a year easy, right? So that's the beauty here, is it's about the positioning more than even what you're doing.
Yeah, and there's enough people in the world that every niche, there's enough people in it.
Yep.
Like, you'd be amazed. There's actually a guy who sells Excel training who makes millions per year.
I saw it on Udemy. If it's the same guy, but he sold 10,000 units of it. This is a little bit different, but it's the same principle. The world is much bigger than most of us think, and you'll start to see it as you go through it. But okay, so here's a good question. We touched on this quite a few different angles, but what if you feel like you don't have any skill whatsoever to offer? Like if you feel like maybe you're 18 and you're like, I've been going to high school, like I can't teach them, So
that's a good question. And I mean, so what we do in that case is we go through this training and we look at the industries which you're interested in and the problems that they have, and then we think about what skill can you acquire, because it's very easy to learn something specific.
Yeah.
Like if you find out that plumbers have a problem with getting more business using Facebook, all of a sudden you just like, okay, all I need to learn is just how to get clients for plumbers on Facebook. Yeah. When you have the parameters defined for you and you've got when you've got the problem defined, you can learn how to do that and acquire that skill for yourself very quickly. Yeah. So a lot of the time we find things and our skills aren't enough to offer right now, but we get skilled up within a week or two. Yeah. If you learn how to do everything, it's impossible. But if you learn how to do one thing specific, within a week, your skills are sufficient enough to help clients and make money from it.
For example, like the niches I could think of that is worth a ton of money is like writing a perfect headline, right? So if you were to get down to like the nichiest of the niche, you could learn how to do that in probably a week. If you bought 5 good books on copywriting, just got the key points, wrote them out, and you said, now I know how to do it, and then did a little bit of testing here and there, you could probably say you're an expert in that in a week. You couldn't become an expert copywriter in a week for all types of copy in a week, but headlines for real estate
copy
agents
for
or
plumbing,
something. Right?
You could get that pretty quick.
Right. You just need to know the key words, right? So and that's always been my problem, I guess, is I'm so curious about so many things. Is I'll go learn as much as I can about so many things and try to build it into one big package, which is ironically the wrong way to do it. It's not so much the more you know, it's the more specialized you get. Is what I'm gathering from all this. And so if you don't have a skill...
I got a good diagram to show that. It's like... This is the diagram which I think about all the time. It's like... This is like effort, right? And most people's effort looks like this. Like, it's small little bits in all different places. So let's say this is someone's effort exerted over a week, right? But it's more. It's like thousands of things, and it's only small. But then if you actually add up that effort, so the person doesn't work any harder. This person does the same amount of hours. They work no harder than the other person.
Interact the same way with their environment.
No harder. Like this person does the same thing, but they add these up, and we can actually just like measure these. Like if we were to add these up, it would be at least that long.
Yeah.
Right? And this is why being a specialist is so dangerous for like the competition. Yeah. It's because your competition's out there and they're doing this and they're not getting anywhere. And to match this in all areas, it's impossible.
Yeah. So what's so funny about this, the specialist, I'm sure we've all seen the TV show or something with the specialist, and we're just like, how do they make money doing that, right? It's because their effort has gone so much beyond anybody who's even touching on that they are the sole proprietor.
So that's why mine's surpassed, I think, everyone in the market right now in consulting.
It's because it's all you do.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So other people try and do all these different things, and it's just been coming out here. And it's like, the Chinese restaurant, to use that, their menus are like this thick. Like, imagine if they tried to have the best meal in this. In
what are they known for on Yelp? Yeah.
But like, dude, right. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't make the best meal for all of those different things. Yeah. But how can one restaurant make like the best burger? Like, they're just working on that same burger every day. Like, they're gonna get it better, and this explains a lot of things. Yeah. And this is why it's so powerful to be a specialist.
And here's another point. Like, let's say you're getting started with a skill. You only really need to know about 10% more than the person that you're selling it to. And most really good businesses, they're already here. They may have a little bit of side tangents, but they're mainly here. The people you want to sell to are experts. So they understand that value. And what's brilliant is they see that you're doing that, and they instantly know, okay, this is the person I want. So it's a built-in sales tool too, because they want to hire other people at that competence level. So you start attracting clients that you want to work with based solely on they seeing that trajectory. People call you all the time, want to work with you, mainly because they don't know exactly what you do, but they know that that's all you do. So they are super excited about it. So if you're just getting started, you may only need to know 10, 20% more than the business owner, but you're probably already going to know way more than they do just by reading one book on the subject.
Oh yeah. Like my first client was that window tinting business, helping them with their website. Like I was by no means an expert at websites. I didn't even know how to build a website. Yeah. But I knew a little bit more than what they did.
Right.
And that's all it takes. I mean, there's a saying like, in the land of the blind, even the one-eyed man is king.
Yeah.
Right? And that's true in business. Like, if everyone is like in trades businesses, everyone's really bad at technology for obvious reasons. They're building stuff. They're out there digging holes.
Automotive companies come to mind. It's like, oh my gosh. How many times you got to a website, you're like, dude, if you just spent like 20 minutes with the right person, your website would be 1,000 times better. You know?
So even if you know like hardly anything, if you go and help them, like they're going to pay you money for it. You don't try and help someone, like you don't, if you've just got small amount of skill on websites, your first client isn't Facebook. You don't call up Facebook and be like, hey, look, I see some mistakes with your website, right?
Yeah.
You find the places where your skills are most valuable and where you don't have to work the hardest.
Yeah.
Like you want to find places where you don't have to work hard, they get massive results, and and everyone's happy.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, in the medical profession, like if I'm walking around with a pain in my side and somebody says, listen, you gave the dentist example once where it's like, why did that take, it only took 10 minutes to take that tooth out and it cost me $200. Why did I pay $200? It's like, I can do it in an hour if you want me to, so it's not about the time or effort necessarily, it's about the expertise. So just getting started isn't a bad place to be, because you can actually focus. Maybe the first part of your effort is learning that skill, or even creating a network of people, and you become an expert in understanding it, so you can outsource it. That's another possible way to do it.
I mean, another one is like people just like this is another good one. So for someone who doesn't think their skills are that great, this was a big game changer for me. Let's say you've got someone who is in, let's say someone's in New Zealand over here, and they're doing English at college, and they're failing their English class. So this person knows how to speak English, but they're failing their English class, and the English teacher is saying, look, you're failing English, you're no good at English, right?
Yeah.
In this person's current environment here in New Zealand, this person is pretty much considered like a failure. But if that person went to China and taught people how to speak English, that person would be like an expert, and they would be able to charge money for it. So it's not that the person, like, this person here is considered a failure. Here, their skills are really valuable. A lot of the time, it's not just about the person's skills. It's that they've applied it to the wrong place.
We've got a familiar face here. Is it Ty? Ty, right?
Ty
Lopez?
In his garage, too.
In his garage. Evidently in New Zealand, they say garage. And when he first saw your ad, he told me, he's like, garage.
Yeah, we say garage.
Garage. Aluminum. Yeah, you could go up. Yeah, so we've been doing.
Should we pull back to the offer?
Yeah. Pop it back over here.
You should also maybe put the Facebook Live poster in.
So just to catch you up here, Ty, on some of the awesome stuff we've been discussing, there's been a lot of questions about, like, if I don't have a skill, if I want to start as a consultant, what do I do? And Sam's been breaking down his process. And with that, I'm going to leave Ty.
By the way, what are you calling this? We should call it. It's the same title as the call. Oh, what's the call? How to get 6 and 7-figure clients.
Yeah, closing 6 and 7-figure clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, or how to build it.
How to start a consulting business.
Yeah.
There you go.
Or how to start a consulting business from scratch.
From scratch.
I think that's good.
Yeah. So we've been talking about.
And create income online, something like that.
All right. I'm going to let you run. You guys.
You don't want to be here?
I got to make sure that everything's going smooth.
Cool. So you're talking. I'll listen in here. Let's wait till we pop that up, because it'll be good to do all at once. Yeah, I would say what I was thinking about consulting when it comes to my mind is making money with a pen. That's what my uncle used to call it, where he got into sales, and he's like, sometimes I'm amazed. You just got a pen, people sign something, and then money goes in your bank account. It's not like hard labor. It's not like farming. It's not like construction. And that's kind of how consulting is, pretty much. Do you set up most of these as monthly contracts?
Yeah, I try to do recurring revenue deals.
Yeah.
So that,
Just do it on a case by case. Sometimes people won't do it.
Oh, it depends. Sometimes the engagements are one-off, but we try and aim for engagements which are recurring.
car in the background. 3, 2, 1. How to start your consulting business. Ooh, what internet are you connected to? It already ended. That was weird. Now we're back up, I guess. Can you check it on Facebook? Make sure we're rolling in, because it looked like it ended for a second, then it unended. As much as we can without showing it. So if you're just tuning in, we've been going live on my website. Sam Oven's been talking about how he's helped people build consulting businesses. Show them that I like what you were talking about before.
Back here?
Which is the person in China.
I am.
You could be a complete loser. Let's say you live in China, but if you go to New Zealand and you
Well, it's the other way around.
Oh, the other way around.
If you were, like, in New Zealand, someone could be failing English at school, and they could be considered a failure in New Zealand, but they know how to speak English, right?
Right.
But they're just competing with fierce competition.
Right.
But if they took that same skill to China, they're an expert, and they could start
Charge
a business
money.
doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about positioning, and one of the things you show people is how to become an expert. Like, let's say you're watching this and you're good at social media. There's tons of businesses. I would say 99% of business owners don't know anything about social media. They hardly have a website. They don't have an Instagram. If they do, it has 2 followers. They don't have a Snapchat for sure. They don't probably don't have a Facebook business page. And so coming in, what's an average amount that you can charge a business? I mean, obviously it's all over the place. Is there like $100 a month, $500 a month? What do you see as kind of a range?
I aim for my guys to charge in between $1,000 or $2,000 a month.
Okay.
And to do that, we aim for businesses which are already making $1 million a year.
Right. So that's the target market.
Yeah.
Which there's a lot of,
You think that's a lot of money when you're starting, but in business, that's considered tiny.
Yeah. Well, $1 million gross isn't that big for sure. I might be in the way. Let me move this. Oh. Shout out from Queens. Ty, did you just wake up? Nope. But I'm getting ready to get a haircut, so I didn't I got to wash my hair before I do it. Okay. You can keep going back. We pop this up on Facebook Live. We haven't had it. You guys already missed the first hour. Make sure you watch my website for stuff. Can you go back to what you were?
Which one?
Wherever you were wanting to. I kind of came in here at the end.
Well, another thing we were talking about is...
Hi, Laura.
In consulting and in business, most people are generalists. And like most consultants, if you ask them what they do, they can't even give you a specific answer. And I use the example of, the general practitioner in the medical industry. They work way harder, longer hours. They work often in a small little office with no windows and stuff. And, they get no respect really in the medical profession, and they don't earn that much money. But on the other hand, the brain surgeon, he doesn't have to see anywhere as many patients. He has a much nicer place to work from. He gets so much respect, and he's almost considered a hero. And on average, they make 20 to 100 times more than general practitioners.
Yeah.
And so in consulting, the same is true. Like specialists is like when you're a specialist, you get the fame, the money, and you don't have to work as hard. And so, in this program, we teach people how to pick a niche and then solve a particular problem in that niche.
So what are some common niches that you were telling me, some of them? Ones like social media. Would you say you should even hyper specialize and do like Instagram expert, or would you say social media is niche enough?
I think you could say you want to combine a discipline with an industry. So this is something which Elon Musk and stuff have been really good at. He chooses his engineering brain and applies it to an industry. So combining a discipline and an industry always is a good recipe in business. And so you could take social media and plumbing. So you could say, I help plumbers get more clients through social media.
Yeah.
So you take an industry, a problem, and a discipline. So 3 key ingredients to really have a good consulting business. You could say, I help plastic surgery practices get more clients with Facebook.
Yeah.
So combining a problem, an industry, and a discipline.
And it also makes it less overwhelming to start for those of you who have never started a business or are hesitant to launch a consulting business. If you think, okay, I'm going to consult to the whole world, but if you just take a very specific window, like you said, plumbers or electricians or plastic surgeons, you might have 4 or 5 friends in an industry. You could just start with them. And if you're charging on average $1,000 or $2,000 a month, it doesn't take that many clients.
4 clients to make 100.
Yeah, 4 clients get you to 6 figures.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you see people able to go from scratch to getting 3 or 4 or 5 clients? Is that super out of the ordinary?
Every day.
Yeah.
I've helped more than 130 people get to 6 figures.
Yeah. Yeah, so Sam has, this is kind of I convinced him to do a free workshop. For those of you on Facebook, you're coming in late. For those of you on my website, you guys are watching, have been seeing the whole presentation. Did you put a link where they can get the full, how long is the training for? Is it weeks,
It's a
months?
6-week program.
6-week program.
Mm-hmm.
And how often do they come every day for 6 weeks? Is it online? Is it in person?
It's all online. You can do it in your own time from anywhere in the world. You can take longer than 6 weeks if you want. 6 is just the recommended time. And you're looking at about 4 hours per week for those 6 weeks.
Okay.
So the training's all pre-recorded. You just show up to, you log in online.
So they get a password, you will get a password protected login on a members
And we've got the
site.
6 weeks covered here.
Let's see how this goes.
So in week 1, I teach people how to pick their niche and craft their offer.
So how to figure out what you would be good at, what you could charge money for. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in week 1, like most consultants out there still have this wrong, and they've been in business for 30, 40 years. They're still generalists.
Yeah.
We get this crystal clear in the first week. Mm-hmm. Then in the second week, I teach people how to conduct appointments or consultations with a predictable process instead of just winging them.
So this is how to sell, how to stand in front of business owners, how to find the business owners and say, all right, let's get going. Here's what I can do for you. Here's how much I charge, and do it without getting shot down, I guess.
Yeah.
By the way, are we showing a link?
Yeah, there's a button.
So what is the link on Facebook?
To register for the training or to buy it?
To get access to this, what we're talking about, the 6-week program.
samovens.com/Ty.
Yeah, so if you're on Facebook, if you're on my website watching this, we have 2 different places. If you're on my website watching, just click the link. It's either above or below this video, and it'll take you to the correct page. For those of you on Facebook, as you're listening, it's Sam Ovens. That's Sam's name. Oh, like an oven, like you cooking with an S. samovens.com/Ty. Make sure you put the /Ty so that we know you came from this presentation. Okay, so that's week 2. And that's an important one because at the end of the day, there's so many people trying to get in business, but if you don't know how to market yourself, if you don't know how to sell your services, you literally just sit there and do nothing. It's funny. I've seen that over and over where people have the best product in the world, but they don't have any customers.
Yeah, the world doesn't beat its way to a better mousetrap anymore. I mean,
No.
if you've got something
1800s
better,
it
people don't find it. You got to show them.
I'm going to Snapchat this. Sam and I are here on a live call on my talk. We're laying out, here's the 6 steps to starting an online consulting business. Kind of cool. So what's on week 3 then?
So week 3 is 6 ways to generate appointments organically. And by organically, I mean without spending money on paid advertising.
Okay.
So there's emailing people directly. I've got templates which I provide them. There's also direct mail. I've created templates for sending that. And like LinkedIn methods, different ways to get in front of people and generate appointments without spending a buck on paid ads. So this
is all for free if you don't have much money.
Yeah, because I understand a lot of people coming into this program, they don't have the luxury of having a Facebook ads budget, right?
Right.
So we show them ways to get clients, start making money organically first, and then once they've got some revenue coming in, they then invest that into paid advertising.
Do you do it with? Is it usually like friends of friends at the beginning? You recommend referrals, or is it cold
someone's got
calling, or what's the most common way?
Cold email. So sending
emailing
emails,
people.
yeah.
So going to different businesses in the niche, getting their email off their website, but you have a special template on what to email them. Because a lot of times, I can tell you, I get thousands of emails a day, and most of them, they're not very compelling. Like I don't even open them. So it's pretty important what you write, not just because a lot of people will just cut and paste to 10,000 people saying, hey, I'll work, here's what I can do for you. And you get 0 replies, so yeah. Okay, then what's number 4?
That's what I call our appointment generating machine. So it's a specific funnel which I've got to take people from Facebook ads through to a scheduled appointment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's for somebody who, if you become an online consultant and then you want to start advertising on
It's
Facebook,
how to generate appointments with Facebook ads.
Yeah.
So right now, the way Facebook is, it's so powerful for generating appointments for consulting.
Yeah.
And so I give you the proven funnel. So someone comes to a landing page, they opt in, then there's a video where we talk about some things to provide value, and then they can schedule into our calendar. So they can see our availability, and they can schedule right in there, and then we just get a notification that someone's scheduled a call for tomorrow, and then we just show up to that call. And
so you're doing it all on the phone.
I recommend the phone or Skype, because the way the world is now, there's no friction to providing services like that. And also a lot of people's local towns aren't the greatest. Like I remember back in New Zealand, you don't have that many people to sell to. I've got clients who are in Spain and the local market isn't too great right now. So I've got clients who service, different countries as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could live anywhere. That's one of the best things about business. I remember the first time I built a business that I could make money on a phone, and I was in Sweden on a train and I was making money. And I remember being like, this is the life, with people don't use all the modern conveniences that are out there, and there's a lot of them. So what's the next one?
So then week 5 is $1 Million Facebook training. So this is how to use the Facebook ads platform to generate consulting clients.
Okay. Have you seen people, so this is from your personal experience and the people that you're training?
This works so well.
Nathan, who's out there? Who was that out there? There's always
So Facebook
people at my
ads
house.
work super well, but you need, some money for ad spend. So that's why I teach people the organic methods first.
So first you can generate some money, and
Yeah.
then if you want to reinvest it back into
Yep.
the business.
So to get to 6 figures, 7 figures, you often need something which can, generate some scale. And that's really Facebook. The organic methods are great to get a start.
I'm going to grab water.
So the organic methods are great to get a start, but to really take things up to that next level, that's when we use the appointment generating machine and the Facebook ads training. And Facebook ads right now, it's one of the best blessings that business owners have had, really. It's so powerful. For the first time in really the history of the world, an ordinary person from home can target their ideal client. Back only 10 years ago, in order to reach businesses, you had to go to advertising agencies. You had to have a lot of money. You had to spend a lot on print or billboard or TV or things like that. And now, for the first time ever, really, where an ordinary person with a very small budget can reach their best target customers. And so week 5 is all about using the Facebook ads platform to generate appointments. And then week 6 is all about scaling to 6 figures and beyond. So I help, the first part of the training shows you how to get your first few clients. Yeah. But once you've got your first few clients, I want people to, scale up. I'm not really interested in helping people just
get one client.
1 or 2 clients. Yeah. I want to teach people how to really build 6-figure, 7-figure consulting businesses.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you do the math on a calculator, you know, if you get 4 clients at $2,000 a month, you're making $8,000 a month, 6 figures, which most people are spending their life trying to figure out how to make.
Dude, I remember working at my first corporate job, and I was mapping mapping the path to 100 grand, and I was like, this is going to take me like 8 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to work so hard, like in 8 years. And then I was planning the path to like the CEO and stuff, and I was like, this is 30 years. I was like, and then it's amazing to think 4 clients with consulting, right?
Yeah.
4. I mean, compared to like other paths to 100 grand, I mean, consulting's got to be one of the easiest ones.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you're watching this, I got to head out in a second, but you're going to keep talking. Google's actually here. Google flies down once a month to talk to me, so I got to catch them before they go to the airport. But I wanted to pop in to let you, I wanted to ask you some
Am I pretty
questions.
much wrapping this one up now?
Yeah, you can do on your own schedule, however you want to do.
We're pretty
Let's
much
get
at the end.
Sean to come back too. So if you're watching on Facebook, you came a little bit late. This is Sam Ovens' program. You can check it out, samovens.com/Ty will take you to the right page. If you're on my website, click the link below or above, get access to this. I think we're only doing it till Friday, so today's Wednesday. It's also in Facebook in the description. There's a link that'll take you directly to this. I'll just want to say one last thing. A lot of people are skeptical and fear-based when it comes to these kind of things. I can just tell you, what I did whenever I see somebody, and even to this day, when I see somebody teaching how to make money, my first thought, and this is completely different than most people, my first thought is, this probably works. Why? Because most people's mind goes, this is probably a scam. There's not as many scams in the world as you think. Now, don't be fooled by the news. The news finds Bernie Madoff stories once every freaking decade, and they put these huge, they run it in the media nonstop. And so people out there have been basically, and just so you know, if you listen to the news a lot, you are a sucker, because the news gets paid by ratings. They're going to try to scare you to get you to watch. The more you watch NBC, MSNBC, the more they can charge advertisers. So remember, the news is not objective. Number 2, when it comes to scams, there are people getting scammed out there. If you see a thing on Craigslist that says, spend $500 and you'll make $2 million, we'll double your money or something. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. But when you take something like this, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not promising you millionaire. It's simple math. For example, if you're pretty good at Instagram, could you get some business people to pay you to manage their Instagram? Yeah, if you think that's a scam, you're a moron. I'll just say that, just to be honest here. I'm a straight talker, okay? Now, the part that this helps you is the 6-week program. How do you contact people? What type of businesses? If you're not good at Instagram, how do you figure out what you're good at? Like, this is just stuff that's the ninja stuff that makes people money out there. And there's more millionaires now than ever been in history, number 1. There's more billionaires than there's ever been. In fact, last year was the first year that self-made billionaires surpassed inherited billionaires. Okay? So for all the people that are cynical and thinking that the sky's falling and that everything out there isn't going to work for you, that's fine. I always tell people, the less people buy this stuff, the less competition there is with the good people. And you got to really think about yourself. I will tell you, the best person I've hung out with in the last 6 months is probably Elon Musk. Mark Cuban was cool, but Elon Musk, and it's funny. 4 times I've gotten to hang out with him, sometimes just bumping into him but the last time at the Game of Thrones premiere, we talked for a long time. He wanted to talk to me, believe it or not, he wanted to talk to me about Snapchat. And we talked, and he knows Evan Spiegel was at his house, so he knows a lot about Snapchat, but he wanted my opinion. He knows I have a big Snapchat, and But the best thing Elon Musk says is he says, sometimes you have to do stuff, even if there's a chance that it won't work. And that is why Elon Musk lives the life that everybody else wishes they lived. Like most guys, if you could be Elon Musk, you own 3 companies, they're worth $1 billion, you've got 14 billion. He's not very old, he's 43 or something, so he still can enjoy his money. He can pretty much do anything he wants. He said, you got to do stuff even if it might fail. And he had a business, Tesla, SpaceX, and Solar City. At one point, every day, he had to make $100,000. That was his burn. They call that burn. So he had a business that wasn't generating any revenue yet. And he was taking his own money, he sold PayPal, and $100,000 a day. And he was just investing it, going, I hope this pays off. I hope this pays off. $100,000 a day. That's $3 million a month, $6 million, $9 million, $12 million. In a year, $36 million. And it went up until he had invested all the $100 million that he had. And he said, I knew that I might, he told me this face to face. He's like, I know that I might fail. And he said, I love the book, The Lord of the Rings, because it teaches you that sometimes you do stuff even if it might not work. And when it comes to stuff like this, you're not investing 100 grand a day. You know, I know people scared to invest $200. I'm like, that is why you are poor, and if you continue in that mentality, you will always be poor. I hate to break the bad news to you. Trust me. If $200, now, I remember when $200 was a lot of money for me, but at some point you have to have courage. You have to draw a line in the sand and go, I'm going to try something new. And these are those type of things. Not everybody who goes into this program is going to do the same. Some people are going to do better than others. This isn't a guarantee thing. But like you said, you've helped over, 130 people make 6 figures. And, you know, it's a little hard to verify. Somebody could lie to Sam. Somebody could lie to us and say they're making 6 figures. But in general, you can tell when people are lying. And how many people told you they become millionaires? 9? 9 people. And it's all through online consulting or generating business online. Some of the consulting might be in person, but you just got to ask yourself, do you like your life now? And whenever you don't like your life now or you don't like your income now, you have to try something new. That's where everybody messes up. That's the oldest, most quoted Albert Einstein saying. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I can't tell you how many people I know that go, Ty, I want to have Ferrari. I want to have a Lamborghini. I'm like, well, what are you doing different now? They go, I'm just working harder. Well, just working harder at the same thing makes you no extra money. If you are a waiter and you work, let's say an average waiter in LA, I'm just going to guess, makes $5,000 if they work at a decent restaurant. So you're making $5,000, and to make $5,000 in LA consistently, I'm guessing you're working 9 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 hours. Well, if you want to make 8 figures, sorry, not 8 figures, as a waiter, if you can make 8 figures, somebody probably did it once, but if you want to make 6 figures, so you want to add 3,000 or 4,000 a month, you can't work 20 hours a day. Like, working harder doesn't always translate direct line. So what I would tell a waiter is keep being a waiter and do something else as a test. And people, am I right to say, people who go in this program can start out and you recommend they keep their current job until this income shows that it can replace the other one.
Yeah.
So this isn't even a crazy thing that you have to stop everything you're doing. This is one where you can keep doing what you're doing and add supplemental income. And I was just at Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. They do the annual meeting in Berkshire Hathaway in Omaha. And one of the great things from Warren Buffett, he's like multiple streams of income. He has streams of income from Dairy Queen, Geico. He owns 10% of Coca-Cola. He owns Bank of America. He owns Amex, a large percent or a lot of shares of Amex. He owns over 100 companies. So he has 100 flows of income. So if you have one flow of income, which is your current job, this can just be a second flow of income. And that's what I do. I do not have all my money coming from one source. Be careful of that, because one day you wake up and that goose that laid the golden egg dies, and if you only have one goose, you're out of money. So this is the link. If you're on Facebook, there's a link in the title of the Facebook. So if you're watching this, stop streaming, click over here. We're going to take this down on Friday. So samovens.com/tie. If you're on my website, just click the link. It says apply here. When you click apply here, it'll take you to this website. It'll take you to the correct place. So yeah, I'm going to go talk to Google. Just want to throw in my 2 cents. We're going to have Sean come, grab my water.
The crazy-haired guy is back.
Crazy-haired man is back.
Thanks, Ty.
Yeah.
Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks.
Boom. So there's some cool stuff, just looking. See, we got a lot of folks signing up. Oh, we're off of the. Can we get some loves for the hair? I think Sam actually wins because he's got the Wolf of Wall Street hair going. So he's winning. But yeah, he definitely there's an ongoing. We're pretty sure he's actually Leonardo DiCaprio from Wolf of Wall Street, but a little less selling of the.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said.
Oh well, you're welcome. It's definitely the hair. So we're going to wrap up here. I wanted to come on and say big thanks to you coming on, teaching. I mean, these 6 steps, as somebody who's, I am a consultant. This is my day job. I work with a lot of different businesses. I consult with Ty. That's my main gig is working with Ty and his company to help them increase revenue. So being able to go through myself and just learn some of these things, it's helped my income considerably. Even one simple thing that Sam taught me early on in his teaching was, shoot for 10% of what you're going to increase the revenue by. It's just something simple as that. I only do equity now. That's my whole business. So those kinds of things that, for anybody who's doing really well, you take one little nugget out of this, you're going to kick some butt. If you're just getting started looking for a new map, looking for a new way to do things, this is a great place to go. But Sam, just from the stuff that you've brought to us today, the beauty is they'll be able to go apply those 3 things. If they do it right, they could take that knowledge, apply it, and create their own business just from the content we've covered today. So I wanted to thank you for that, and I'll let you talk us off the stage here, but a big thanks from everybody here. And let's give them some hearts on we got some hearts on there. Let's give them some love, some likes, and I'll let you close us out here, Sam.
Cool. So what do you want me to do? Are we going to pretty much wrap
Yeah,
up now?
we'll wrap it up. We've unless you want to do some more Q&A, but I think we'll let everybody. They've been very generous with your time, and we want to make sure we're not keeping it for. I don't think we've been up here live for 3 hours, so
Really?
You've been kicking it. You've been doing good, man.
Cool. Should we give someone a link to the webinar and to the?
Yeah. Here's a good thing. Yeah, anybody who's still on here, and if you want to learn more about or you came in a little later today, let's. We're actually holding a very specific encore tomorrow to this type of training. And Sam, tell them a little bit about what they're going to learn on this while I write it up here.
Yes. So Ty. Sean introduced me to Ty, and he said, Ty, Sam's an expert at helping people start consulting businesses, and he's got a track record himself, and he's helped a lot of people start successful consulting businesses. And Sean thought, this would be a great fit for Ty's audience, because a consulting business is like no other business really. Like, you can get started immediately, and all you need is just your cell phone and your laptop and the skills you already have. So starting e-commerce businesses, software businesses, all these other businesses, they require capital and they require a lot of time. And, when I got started, I didn't have the luxury of either of those things. Like, I wanted to start making money quickly, and I didn't have huge capital to put up and risk. So a consulting business, you can start immediately, and you can start making money very quickly. So Ty thought, this would be a great fit for his audience. Why doesn't Sam come along and teach my audience how to start a consulting business from scratch? So I spent probably, I think, a full 36 hours. I knew a lot of people were going to see this because I knew Ty's following was big. So I put 36 hours of effort into this one free training. And, if you want to see the best, my best work that I've put out for free, this free training which we're holding tomorrow, it's going to show you from A to Z how to start your own consulting business from scratch. Even if no one knows who you are, it doesn't matter what skills you have or anything like that. Like, this is for anyone. Someone who doesn't have any skills, someone who's still in a 9-to-5 job, even if you're still at college, how to start a consulting business from scratch and get your first high-value client fast. So like I said, I put a full 36 hours or more into this free training, and you can go to this link right here.
So tylopez.com/consulting. You'll see a registration page for that training. And, we covered a decent amount of that content today, but the beauty of this training is it's a bit more in depth, quite a bit more in depth, and a little more structured so that you can get the most value out of it.
Yeah, it's the best free training I've ever put out, without any word of hype or anything like that. I mean, lots of people are saying it's the best thing they've seen for consulting. So go there, register, because it's not going to be up for very long. We're going to be taking this training offline, and even if you email us to request it, you're not going to be able to get this. So you want to go to this link right now. You want to register for the training. You want to show up, attend, take lots of notes, because this free training alone, it could change everything for you. It could enable you to start your own consulting business, get clients, and, really change the trajectory for you.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again, Sam. Everybody on here, give him the virtual round of applause, some comments, some love, and we'll bring you back again sometime here soon. This is great, man.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.